public to see with their on our meeting.
Yeah, and then I feel pretty good, and then I do too much, and then it's not so good. I need to contain myself. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Feeling too good, and then. Yeah.
We're all jealous. Hopefully we won't have to do this again.
The other ones allow me to sit. These actually, I tend to just slouch when I sit in those too. And that actually, these at least make at the end of the day sit straight a little bit.
Made myself I don't care about the safety of children because I know we should ask.
These personal ones.
I just so apparently I don't care about the safety of children or staff. I mean, that's what I'm
Where the switches are, Brian. Very back. Yep. I think it was just from this afternoon.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you could please join me in pledging allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, are there any adjustments to our agenda?
There are a number of adjustments or addendum to the agenda. Recommended actions. All trustees should have received this at their podium or their places sitting there. You can see number one, consent agenda, accept donation from Torrington Cellular Plus Verizon updating backpacks, filled with student supplies, and a total value of $1,600. Letter M on consent agenda, accept the Wyoming Department of Education grants for 2020-2021 school year as follows. Title I in the amount of $919,287.49. Title II, Part A, $233,914.89. And Title IV, $137,612.81. And then in addition to consent agenda, item N, approve additional purchase from Bluff Sanitary Supply exceeding $5,000 for purchase of cleaning and disinfecting materials for Torrington Middle School in the amount of $6,321.33. A number of new business items also would be the addendum to the agenda. A revision of the current agenda item D, which is consider approval of contracting with Edmentum for virtual curriculum for district students in grades 6 through 12 only, not K through 12. Consider approval of contracting with Edmentum for digital licenses and curriculum for district students in grades 6 through 12 only, not to exceed $6,250. Letter F, consider approval of offering a teaching contract for the 2020-21 school year, offering a teaching contract for Alyssa Lamont as a special education teacher at Lincoln Elementary for the 2020-2021 school year pending Wyoming certification. Item G, consider approval of elementary school school-wide Title I program plans. Approve the school-wide Title I program plans as required by the Wyoming Department of Education as submitted by Lincoln Elementary, Trail Elementary, Lingo Fort Laramie Elementary, Southeast Elementary, and Grange Elementary Schools to continue school-wide programming through the consolidated grant. And then also additional items, letter E, board member topics for discussion, letter F, future meetings, G, superintendent's report, letter H, executive session for superintendent evaluation process, and finally I, adjournment. And actually those, a couple of those are not addendum items as they're just inserted, so when you follow the addendum, actually you can kind of follow along as opposed to, we did have the adjournment on the original ones.
Thank you, sir. Is there a motion to adopt this agenda with the addendum? Thank you, Mr. Wagner. And if I could remind you each to state your name before you speak, because we're having some citizen requests from our YouTube feed, et cetera, that they don't know who's talking when they're talking. So if you could just identify yourself before you speak every time, they'd appreciate it. Is there a second?
Second, Jesperson.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, I'd ask all trustees wishing to adopt the agenda to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? That has passed unanimously. And we are on to item B, public forum. I'd like to remind everyone that there is a 5-minute time limit, and Mr. Jesperson has agreed to serve as our timer during this time. And I would like to invite Miss Kathy Moriarty is joining us via Zoom, and I would like her to proceed with her remarks.
Kathy, if you're able to unmute yourself from your Zoom, you can certainly, we do have a microphone here. Perfect.
There you go.
Yes, we can hear you just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Moriarty. I appreciate the opportunity to address the board tonight. And I would like to just add my voice to others in our community who feel it is critical that students wear masks when they can't be 6 feet distant from each other. The top infectious disease experts in the country have advised this over and over. And the Wyoming Health Department, I believe, requires it. We simply cannot be too vigilant in protecting children, teachers, staff, and community members in the face of a pandemic where the US is ranked #1 in the number of cases and #1 in the number of deaths in the world. A recent report, I think just came out today, from the American Academy of Pediatrics and the Children's Hospital have shown that schools as they open across the US now have a 90% increase in COVID-19 among kids among the last 4 weeks. So I would simply want to encourage everyone to try to follow the experts, try to keep our community safe, try to keep our children and our staff and our faculty and our teachers safe. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Kathy. Next, I'd invite Michael Sussex to the microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, I understand you all are in a very tough position. I understand that you are hearing lots of static from both sides of this discussion about the masks, but for me, it's not about the masks. It's about my rights as a parent to decide how my child's health is handled. And I would invite you to look into the possibility, if a lot of you have children in the school system or have had children in the school system or know somebody in the school system, if we're standing here next year addressing the topic of whether or not vaccines are going to be mandatory in order to send your kid to school. Those are all thoughts that we all need to be thinking about as we move forward with this. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is communication. In your mission statement, one of the #1 things is to improve communication with students, staff, families, and communities. We're a week away from school, and we're addressing this. I understand that you had to wait for guidance from the state on some things, but you know we've been at this for almost 6 months now. You know, some discussion about it earlier and some guidance as to where you were at in the process would have been great. There wasn't any of that. We're a week away from school, and you still can't access a student handbook online as of today. You know, is it going to be available by next Tuesday? I don't know. These are just some things that I think we need to definitely improve, and I think that moving forward, we're all going to have a lot of tough questions we're going to have to answer for ourselves and for our children. And, you know, we're on a slippery slope. Where do we go from here? So that's all.
Thank you, Mr. Sussex. Mrs. Hager, could you step forward?
Good evening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak. My name is Erin Hager, and we have 3 kids in the school district here. They all go to school in Torrington. When this meeting was first scheduled, I was prepared to speak about my constitutional and legal rights as a parent. For our family, we feel this is an overreach for our constitutional right to make the best decisions for our children, including healthcare decisions. I stand by the mission of the Goshen County Parent Concerned Group, who believes these decisions, including the requirement to wear a mask, should be at the family level. However, I also respect and honor the difficult decisions that you find yourselves in. School districts across the country are faced with these difficulties. I've researched, questioned, listened as a family, and I know that for us, sending our kids back to school with in-person instruction is the best decision. We don't send them because we agree with wearing masks. Our youngest wears glasses. He struggles with his speech. He struggles with his confidence. He has to work much harder in his class to keep up than other kids do. I worry about his anxiety. I worry about his ability to learn with all of these distractions. But I know his teachers are the best for him. He doesn't have an IEP, and I'm not confident that the waivers as outlined in the program and number 6, I'm not confident that that covers my child. I don't know. These are difficult choices that all of us are having to make. They're very individualized for each family. So why are we sending our kids back to school? My husband and I believe that public education is one of the most treasured assets in our society. Is it perfect? Far from it. Are teachers underpaid, underappreciated, undervalued, and required to be superhuman? Absolutely they are. Does our society place an incredible burden on educators to be caregivers, nurses, social workers, counselors, and mentors? Yes, it does. Do teachers sign up for this profession every day because of that incredible responsibility? Absolutely they do. I want my kids exposed to those talents and gifts of our local teachers. They are the professionals. I know I am not. I am terrified that as a county, we may be placing so much emphasis on safety that we are forgetting about the power of public in-person education. My concern that I'd like to express tonight is that masks or no masks, are you going to do everything that you can to keep my kids in school? People fear that if even one kid gets sick and God forbid something happened to that child, they wouldn't be able to live with themselves. That decision's on you. And I hear and respect that, but I'd also encourage you guys to take that one step further. What if the masks, the plexiglass dividers, the spacing, everything doesn't work with 100% effectiveness and we have COVID cases in the schools? What if public health, in conjunction with the state, shuts down our schools again? What if our community loses a teenager to suicide or overdose from the mental toll of not being in their social setting? Can you live with yourself then? According to the CDC, suicide is the 2nd leading cause of death in teens. The CDC Director Robert Redfield just stated in an interview on July 31st, they're seeing far greater deaths from suicide and drug overdose in teens than COVID. He stated for the social well-being of our children, they need to be in school, not in front of a computer screen, in school. These are uncomfortable topics. I don't like it, I'm shaking, but the conversations have to be had. Ask yourself, what are you willing to risk to keep these kids in school? A generation of children is at risk. I know you're not the governor. I know you're not the legislature. I know you're not the State Department of Health. It's not for this body to debate those issues. I have a list of questions that I would like to propose based on who you are. In your leadership governments, it states that you will govern with emphasis on organizational vision rather than on interpersonal issues, and you will encourage diversity and viewpoints to enhance decision-making. So I raise these questions in light of that. If you don't feel masks mandate your personal freedoms, have you identified personally what does? Have you identified for a school district what does? Do you have a line in the sand that you are not willing to cross? If you haven't identified that, should you? Are you open to feedback to improve your communication with the public? What role do you play in ensuring every building is effectively communicating with the students and families they serve? Have you trained each administrator or enforcement on the pending handbook that we can't see yet? Can you ensure the enforcement is consistent? And what will you do if unfair treatment is found within the schools? Can you disclose a list of cleaning agents and materials used within the classrooms to parents so we can prepare for potential side effects? If there are side effects, how will those issues be handled? Do you feel this school district's current policy on employee use of social media sites, including personal sites, is sufficient for the times that we are in? Should parents be aware of this policy? If a parent has a complaint about a post on a personal site, how will that be addressed? Can you provide data to back up each tier in the Smart Start plan? What thresholds are placed on each level? Can you work with county health officials to establish those measurements now so that we as parents can be informed? Do you think it's reasonable for parents, especially working parents, to make educational decisions about their children with 3 to 5 days notice? Can you lead the discussions with local officials to know what the bar needs to be so we can be mask free and enjoying our students' time and space in their classrooms with their teachers and classmates? And finally, most importantly, can you look me in the eye and promise me that you will do everything that it takes to make sure my kids stay in school? Will you tap into every perspective, get every viewpoint that you might not have sought before, get as creative as you have to get to make sure that our kids are in the school and the buildings? Can you promise me that we are not on a fast track to tier 3? In conclusion, I know some of you on the board fairly well. We're raising our kids in the same schools. We're cheering them on together from the sidelines. I've served beside you on various committees and various boards. I've had long conversations with you. We might not agree on the difficult issues we are facing, but I want to publicly applaud you and thank you. You have conducted yourselves with grace and respect, and I applaud you. You never cut me off. You listened. You sought me out for comment and my perspective and clarification. We treated each other with respect and admiration for the responsibilities and roles we have. Chairman Patrick, I acknowledge the position that you're in, and I ask that we treat each other in that same way. Public comment and input is vital to the district's success. We are all stakeholders. We don't have to agree, and no one deserves to be belittled or attacked. Condescending language is not appropriate and shouldn't be tolerated. However, we do need to be talking. The dialogue needs to be there. In your mission, you state we're committed and accountable to the following beliefs. We believe in the collective voice of students, staff, families, and community working towards a common goal. We believe in meaningful communication between schools, families, and community that provide an open, honest, and concise dialogue that keeps all informed. Madam Chair, I ask that you lead in that charge. We're heading into the great unknown, but we're trailblazers. Trailblazers make a new track through wild country. My family looks forward to being on this trek with you. I believe we're just getting started. If you'd like to respond to any of my questions, my email address is ehager44@gmail.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hager. Mrs. Duffy.
First, I would like to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to talk tonight. And we realize that this is a hard process for everyone and that it has been unclear of what is going to be happening. However, it has been very challenging as a parent to make decisions for what we're going to do for this coming year because of the short time frame. We're a week from school and we have very little information about what the distance learning is going to look like, even what the in-person learning is going to look like. My husband and I have always felt that public school was the best option for us because We believe the kids need that social interaction. But I am not confident that with all of the guidelines that are going to be in place, that that social aspect is going to be anything like what they need. We have a 5-year-old that's almost 6, and he's going to be going into kindergarten. And I am so nervous if I send him to school and tell him he cannot be within 6 feet of his friend and he has to wear a mask, that he is going to hate school for the rest of his career. That is what we're facing. We're putting our kids in this situation where we could ruin their love of learning forever. And personally, I don't know that I'm willing to take that chance. And I think each parent is going to have to make that decision of what is best. It would be helpful if we could have more information. I know you guys are working on it, but like I said, it's a week away and we just don't have enough time, it feels like, to make the proper choices with the amount of information we've been given. Last year was really hard. We also have a second grader, and last year was really hard academically. I mean, everybody knows that it didn't go well. It's not the teacher's fault. They were thrown into a mess. But we need to be confident as a parent, if we do go into tier 3, that it's going to be better. We have to know the details of that before we can make a decision of whether we're going to send them back to school, and if they get put into tier 3, if it's going to be better. We need specifics on how it's going to look like, what the teachers are going to do. I stay at home with the kids, so I'm able to do the distance learning with them if we do get into that situation. But I think you also need to consider all the working parents, that how are they going to handle coming home from work at 5, having to fix supper, and then also do schooling after that. I just don't know that I don't know that those considerations have been made yet. So I just ask that you guys be clear about the plans and give us information so that we can make the best choice for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Bannister, you are next on our speakers list.
It'll be better if I speak into the microphone.
It might be.
I was having a hard time hearing presentations. I'm Ken Bannister. I'm a retired psychologist and very concerned about safe schools return. The science most recently available to us, the reports say that 399,000 kids have been diagnosed with COVID in the United States in the last several weeks. 100,000 kids diagnosed in the last 2 weeks. The best science tells us that wearing a mask is probably the best preventative measure we can take at this time. So we strongly endorse following the state guideline for wearing masks in schools. We have a granddaughter who attends Torrington Middle School, and without adequate precautions, she very likely may not attend classes in person. Our preference would be that she were able to do that. But I can't risk exposing her to students or staff who may be asymptomatic, not showing any symptoms of COVID disease, and therefore put her at risk of becoming infected herself. The potential lifelong implications are tremendous. Another concern that I have is that I'd like consideration of the early morning screening or the school entry screening to include temperature checks. I think that gives us an added layer of protection, if you will. I appreciate the job that you folks do, and having served on many a board, I don't envy the position you're in right now. I know this has been difficult. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bannister. We have Kendra Duggar next to speak.
As a parent and a staff member, I'm greatly concerned about opening our schools up on August 18th. Recently, we have seen a significant rise in cases here in Goshen County. Since August 2nd, there has been 17 new cases and 3 hospitalizations. And this number could continue to rise as residents come home from last-minute vacations, Sturgis, and State Fair. Myself, along with several other parents and staff, feel that we should delay the start of school until after Labor Day at the earliest to allow time for the air ventilation systems to be checked and plexiglass dividers that have been ordered to come in and be set in place for all grades. All students deserve the same learning environment and safety, and we should not prioritize the plexiglass dividers by grades, as all students deserve the same protection at the same time. All of the air ventilation systems need to be checked in all the schools throughout the county, as it is proven that masks and plexiglass dividers are not as effective if we do not have the proper airflow to lower the concentration of viruses in the air. Since the virus emerged in the United States, we have been told to not touch your face, and if you're wearing a mask, it is imperative to keep your hands off your face. And do not put on and off your mask constantly, as this can cause cross-contamination from your hands to your face. Students and staff will have times where they do not have to wear their masks, and it is imperative to avoid cross-contamination by properly removing dirty masks and replacing them with clean masks. It is also important to teach our staff and students the proper way to put on masks and remove them to avoid contamination. Our schools should access their ventilation systems in all buildings to see if they can be modified to optimize the airflow in each classroom. They can be modified to optimize the airflow in each classroom. The more air changes we have, the better. Recirculated indoor air just pushes the virus particles around, and we need to allow for more fresh air to enter the building. Many schools have air systems that do not allow the option of increasing fresh air intake. If the air systems in our buildings do not allow the option of increasing the fresh air intake, it is recommended by the EPA to use a freestanding certified HEPA filter. However, when choosing the correct one, the size of the room and noise needs to be taken into consideration. If the device is used correctly, these filters could dramatically reduce airborne contaminants. According to the EPA, increased ventilation can lower the concentrations of indoor air pollutants or contaminants, including any viruses that may be in the air. However, the use of PPE will still need to be mandated, as increased airflow itself is not enough to protect people from COVID-19. But when the proper PPE is used in conjunction with increased ventilation, it can protect people indoors. The greater number of people in an indoor environment requires the greater need for outdoor air. Indoor spaces are more risky than outdoor spaces, as it is harder to keep people apart and there is less ventilation. It is important to also increase ventilation in the school's high traffic areas as well. Increased ventilation can help reduce risks from airborne transmission of viruses. Improving ventilation also benefits indoor air quality by reducing exposure to products used for cleaning and disinfecting potentially contaminated surfaces. All students need to have the same protection from this virus. And the more protection we provide, the less likely they are to transmit the virus if someone was to get sick. This is why it's important to delay the opening of schools until the air ventilation systems are properly checked and functioning and all plexiglass dividers are set in place. There's no way to keep students socially distanced, as elementary kids do not fully understand the severity of this virus, and middle school and high school students think they are invincible and the virus will not affect them in any way. Our schools are not fully prepared at this time to take on the large task of protecting several students and staff members. We need more time to fully prepare and make sure there is little to no room for error. Our staff needs more training on the proper procedures and cleaning techniques. We need to work together as a district to provide the safest environment possible so we can attend all year and not just for a few weeks. I care deeply about the risks our students and staff could face if we do not have the proper PPE in place and the proper air ventilation in our buildings. I feel no school in the district is 100% prepared to face the challenges that we are going to face without the proper trainings, meetings, etc. As parents and educators, it's our duty to provide the safest and most nurturing environment to all of our students and to protect their health and well-being. I want to thank you for your time and consideration of this issue that I have mentioned. And we are all in this together, and we need to protect our children, students, and staff to the best of our abilities. Thank you for all that you have done. I know this is uncharted territory for all of us, and I just want the best not only for my children, but for every other child out there in Goshen County.
Thank you, Ms. Duggar. Next, we have Marie and Alexis Flanagan.
Let's start with some facts. On September 6th, 2019, we were headed to Rollins for a volleyball tournament, and Lexi came down with a fever. That's when our lives were twisted upside down. I have 4 documented doctor's notes from September 18th through October 1st. My doctor's notes, though, were rejected by our principal. On Saturday, October 1st, I received a voicemail, which is still saved, that was left for me by the principal from his cell phone while I was working, stating that my child was being considered for expulsion due to her attendance. I was then sent a letter the following week from the Goshen County attorney stating that they were looking at our situation and looking at our situation to see if we needed to be prosecuted for truancy. From that point on, I made it my mission to make sure that my daughter was not bullied by our principal and get the education that she is afforded to for being a United States citizen while she was severely sick. Unfortunately, she was not the only kid, and I am not the only parent that had this happen. Thank God everything is documented in these 4 folders. Why do I say all of this? When we were told that we had to provide a doctor's note for the non-masters, my mind went to all the stuff we went through with doctor's notes. So, what now? In trying to figure out what to say, I came to a conclusion. It honestly doesn't matter if I or anyone in this room says, because you already have your minds made up. I say this because this isn't the first time I've been up here. During the special meeting last week, we heard the board president scoop right through the agenda changes not to allow any parents or community members to speak, or at least that's how it was perceived. During that same meeting is when I realized the parents do not matter when it comes to our children. I have seen and have been affected by that firsthand. What is there left to say? I literally have been harassed, lied to, and bullied by someone you offered another contract extension to. I'm in utter disbelief that your right hand doesn't know what your left hand is doing behind your back. Funny thing is I tried to tell you, but I wasn't heard. Because you already had your mind made up. I am in month 11 of fighting for my kid. It is terrible that I have to protect her from the one who is supposed to be there for her. But again, you had your mind made up before you knew the entirety of the situation. I know I have to spend this year making sure that my face will never be forgotten again. How about you start asking questions? How about you investigate the many problems and find solutions? How about you ask the high school boys why they're so protective? Do you have a clue what's even going on at our high school? That is for you. You need to stop attending meetings. You need to go and be a leader, be there. Go to our schools, ask the kids. They are smart. They are productive, and they are human. You may not want to hear the answer, but at least you're going to get one, and they're going to feel like their voice is heard. Do you think that you should look into Admentum and how it was used last year before you consider giving it to so many kids? Do you think that you should research how those who were homebound dealt with everything? There are many avenues to research. It just takes your precious time. But that's your job. Your homebound students were the test dummies for COVID, I hate to say. We literally lived everything that people are about to experience. Those of us that were sick, had sick children. We would be your best ally, but instead, you've let somebody else dictate where we stand. You can either stand with your students, or you can stand over them. It's your choice.
My name is Alexis Flanagan, but you can call me Lexi. I am one of 3 model kids from last year you may have heard about, but just in case you didn't hear, it's a quick rundown.
Lexi, if you want to take a minute, please do. We'll shut this down.
On September 6, 2019, I started to experience what I thought was strep throat, but quickly found out it wasn't. After many doctor's notes that were not accepted by my principal, we discovered that it was a severe hip form of mono. I have done countless blood tests, checked every box, and even had a spinal tap that was incredibly painful. And over the course of the first month, all while my parents were being harassed by my principal, was nearly kicked out of school by him as well. Here's how this affected me: sadness. Looking back, the hardest part is that no one, not even a single one of you, cared about me and what I was going through. No one called, no one checked except for 3 teachers. One of those teachers was brought in halfway through. Fear. Walking into that building was one of the hardest things I had to do. Just knowing that the building was what made me sick in the first place, and not knowing what else it would do to me. Teachers not being willing to help when I so desperately needed it, raising my hand and being ignored, trying to complete my work that was nearly impossible. Anxiety, anger, misrepresentation, lies, and broken promises. I don't know all you go through as a leader, but I know that to lead, you need to be involved. I never saw you involved. I never felt that you cared. I never saw you at school or in meetings to make sure that this would be fixed. What I did see at the beginning, after being so extremely exhausted, I noticed I didn't have any homework. I was a little nervous. I saw my mom cry, I saw my dad mad, and I saw my sister worried. My grandparents, my friends, and their parents were so worried about me, they didn't know what they could do. The teachers that did care made sure I got what I needed. Many sleepless nights, pain, worry, anxiety. This is something I go through every day. I am worried about what will happen when I go back to school because you didn't listen. In saying all this, there are some questions for you to address. How do you expect us students to know that you cared when we have never even seen you in the schools? How do you expect us to know that you will make the proper changes needed so no other student will have to endure everything that I did? How do you expect us to trust you? You have had 11 months to make a change. That's how long I've been sick. My statistics are higher than COVID, and you let me down. My statistics were higher, and you let my principal walk all over my family and I. You let me down. Now you have to make a decision for COVID, and you couldn't make a decision for me.
Thank you, ladies. Before we have our final speaker in public forum, I have a letter that I was asked to share with you. It is from Dr. Wesley Travers, the president at EWC. It says, please allow this letter to serve as public comment for your regularly scheduled meeting on August 11, 2020. Unfortunately, Eastern Wyoming College has a Board of Trustees meeting on the same night and times, so I am unable to appear in person. Eastern Wyoming College will open with in-person, face-to-face classes on August 24th, 2020, and we too plan to follow the state health department guidelines requiring our students to wear masks when social distancing is not possible. A recent study published in Health Affairs compared the COVID-19 growth before and after mask mandates in 5 states. Sorry about that. Apparently, it's not going to give up. In 15 states, this study found that mask mandates led to a decline in daily COVID-19 growth rate, with the daily growth slowed by over 2 percentage points after 3 weeks. In another study, 198 countries that had cultural norms or policies supporting mask wearing had lower death rates. Finally, in Missouri, 2 hairstylists had close contact with 140 clients while infected with COVID-19. Everyone wore masks and none of the clients consequently tested positive. Wearing a mask, washing hands, and maintaining social distancing has been supported by the World Health Organization and state public health departments since we began the fight against this deadly pandemic. If students refuse to wear masks at EWC, they will be attending classes from home until the state public health office provides us other directives. I will try my best to protect those students and instructors that attend classes face-to-face at EWC and encourage Goshen County School District to follow suit. Thank you for your time and attention to this most important matter. And I'm sorry for my timer interruption malfunction. Finally, Senator Steinmetz would like to participate in our comment period.
Well, hello, board members and Superintendent Kramer and Madam Chairwoman. It's nice to be with you this evening. And I appreciate you taking the time to hear from our parents and community members on this important matter. I've given you, I have heard that some of you didn't have a constitution, and so I wanted to share one with you. This is a special one because it has our own Ed Buchanan signature on the front of it, and it's not very often that we have a Goshen County resident that is the Secretary of State. So I wanted you to have a copy of his. And then I also provided you with a fact sheet and some other information that I'd like to go through with you. I did want to start out with the director of the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Robert Redfield's statements on July 14th. And he did say that it's important to be factual as we go through this. If we look right now, the mortality of this particular COVID virus in the first 218,000 people we looked at February to July, there were 52 individuals under 18, and if I recollect, about 35 were actually school age. Some of them were younger than school age. We're looking critically at those individuals, and clearly there's an increase in comorbidities related to significant medical conditions. But I think it's important because what that means actually is the risk per 100,000 so far into the outbreak, 6 months it is, in fact, that we're looking at about 0.1 per 100,000. So another way to say that is it's 1 in 1 million for the kids to be affected. And he's referencing the death rate among children. So that's a very important fact from the CDC, the director of the CDC. And if you go to their website, you'll see that they recommend that people wear face masks. The face covering may help to prevent the cloth. Face coverings are most likely to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and so on. And so it's hardly a concrete solution there. So as we look at our numbers going through everything, we see that in Goshen County, as of today, we have 29 confirmed cases, 13 recovered, and definitely we have seen a little uptick with all of that. However, the Wyoming leading causes of death in 2017, you'll see at the bottom of your chart, even if we triple that, our state number of deaths in Wyoming, we don't even make the top 10 of deaths in 2017 for the top 10 causes of death. And so as we talk about facts and we look at numbers, we have to look at our state numbers and our county numbers. And we are at a very low rate right now. That could change. We all know that. And I think we would be prepared to respond. But I also think that Goshen County citizens need to be respected and honored for how we have respected one another and how we have handled this. And the fact that we have a low infection rate and the fact that they shouldn't be penalized for that. We're not New York. And so if you turn your page over in the handout I've provided for you, you see the pandemic influenza response plan by the state of Wyoming. And that will show you what a pandemic really looks like, a severe scenario, 1918 type. We weren't sitting here flat-footed as the state of Wyoming. We had considered these things ahead of time. And so when you look at that, they're talking about a severe pandemic being 4,301 deaths, which is a far cry from 29. And so they're looking at hospitalizations of 18,813 and total hospital beds needed of 21,823 and outpatients of 87,077. So that's what a severe pandemic looks like in the state of Wyoming. As of right now, with all of the states considered, Wyoming ranks third lowest death rate in the nation. And I'm thankful for that because I think we really have been social distancing for a long time as citizens of this state because there's not that many of us. So as we make these decisions and as a fellow elected person, these are the things I'm looking at when we're going to have to consider some of these decisions at the state level as well. And I would hope that we could all agree that while some of the science isn't settled, these facts regarding the state of Wyoming are very clear. And if you go to the next page, you go to COVID-related deaths in Wyoming. It also shows you deaths by age group. There has been no one under 18 years of age. There's been 20% of those 29 deaths have been, I'm going to guess around 21, 22% because the chart doesn't give you the exact number. We're 19 to 64 years. And the rest have been 65 plus years. And if you go down to the next part of that, COVID-19 related deaths by underlying health conditions, almost 90% of those deaths have had underlying comorbidities and health conditions. And so when we're looking at this, we definitely need to protect the vulnerable and the people who are at risk. That is very, very important. However, the risk to our children is very minimal. according to the facts and the statistics. And I guess the question I would have regarding this too is how many of our teachers are 65 years older, or 64 years, 19 to 64. There's probably some of those. But those are questions we need to be asking ourselves as we deal with this situation. The other part that I wanted to address were just the questions that I had sent you in my letter to the school board on July 27th when we met with Chairman Patrick and Superintendent Kramer. I was hoping that we could get some of those questions answered, and I provided that list for you in case you did not receive that letter. It's just a portion of it. But the other part I would like to ask is, if we are at this low point in Goshen County right now, I guess what I would like to know is, what does it take to get the masks off of our children? What is the goalpost that when we say we have to have these masks right now at this low bar, then where is the standard of when the masks come off? Is it just when the state health officer says that? Where are we at with that? Because I think that's something that parents really deserve to know as we're going into this together. And so those are just a few of the points, and I'll let you look at the questions I have to ask you later. In closing, I just want to speak about one more thing, and that was the issue of public comment during the special meeting. So if you look at state statute, and I know you had some advice from your attorney that I disagree with, because even if you have a special meeting, it's still a public meeting, and it falls under the Administrative Procedure Act. And so those rules still apply. And if we need a little clarification in that act, I'm glad to make that so that we can have public comment at those meetings. But executive meetings or executive sessions are really the only meetings that we should not be listening to the public. And, you know, you and I, we are all working for these folks here. No matter what they think about masks or anything else, we work within this for them. And so it's important. I want to have their input, and I would hate to think that we would ever have a special meeting as a legislature to come down and say, you know, somebody travels down to the legislature and then we don't allow them to speak. We always allow for public comment, and it's after every section that we address at the legislature. So we always allow for public comment. In closing, I appreciate the work that you're all doing, because I know these decisions are hard. And I know that you're being torn from both sides, and I understand all of that. But I hope that you would also consider the Constitution, because that is designed to protect everyone's rights, especially when we get into sticky situations like this. And I just want to read a little bit from it, and then I will let you get to your business. But our preamble says, "We, the people of the state of Wyoming, grateful to God for our civil, political, and religious liberties, and desiring to secure them for ourselves and perpetuate them to our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution." And in section 1, it says, "Power inherent in the people. All power is inherent in the people, and all free governments are founded on their authority and instituted for their peace, their safety, and happiness. For the advancement of these ends, they have at all times an inalienable and indefeasible right to alter, reform, or abolish the government in such manner as they think proper." And so as we deal with the pandemic, we still have to honor the base law of our land that allows our kids to have what we've had. And so as you move forward, I would be glad to support you in any way to help you with these decisions. And if you choose to apply for a variance or anything like that, I'd be glad to help. I also know there is COVID funding that could be allocated to people who choose to homeschool and choose another option than sending their kids to school, whether it's over feeling like it's an unsafe environment, or it's a mask issue, or whatever it might be. During this time, there are funds to help with that. And if you would like to apply on behalf of your people who don't want to send their students, I would be glad to help you with that as well. So I thank you for your time tonight and for your service to Goshen County.
And I would be glad to visit with you anytime my doors are open. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Excuse me. Thank you, Senator.
My name is Liam Hodge. I will be attending 7th grade at Southeast maybe.
Could you use the microphone, please?
Yes. I just want to come towards you guys and say, I do not like this mask thing. I get claustrophobic with masks. They scare me. They scare me, honestly. I just like to say, please do not have masks. They scare me.
Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate your comments. I just wanted to make note of the fact that the board has been presented with a petition this evening, and there is a legal process that we need to follow upon receipt of a petition. We have not gone through this for over 10 years, and so I'm not clear on what are the requirements are on our part, but our attorney will advise us and we'll proceed from there regarding treatment of our petition. So just a follow-up to some of what we have seen so far. At this time, I'd like to proceed to item C on our agenda, information and proposals. And we have presentations by summer school and extended school year administration. And folks, if you all only wanted to be here.
Would you let people know that they're allowed to be dismissed? That's
just what I was going to say, Trustee Wagner. If you only wanted to be here to view public comments, please feel free to take your leave at any time. We just ask that if you want to visit with your friends and neighbors, that you do that outdoors, please. Thank you. Yeah, we got you. We got that. All right, if you extended school year and summer school administrators would like to rise, come before the group and use your teacher voices to present your information, we'd invite you to do so at this time.
I can do that. I can use my teacher voice.
I know you
I
can.
just want to make sure I'm the 16th there. So I was principal for the elementary summer school, and what I provided you with was kind of our submission of what we needed to do in order to have that plan. Those that don't know, our summer school programs are funded through a Bridges grant, which means that we're providing instruction beyond the regular school. And the purpose of the summer school at the elementary level is to try to target our students who are performing at 40% or below on academic assessments that are used at the district office. Also, attendance might be an issue or something that would contribute to a referral for summer school. We also ask or have sometimes parents who will say, you know what, I'm really concerned about my child, which was some of what we had because of the break that we had from March till July. So in June, we started looking at, or in May, we started looking at the referrals for summer school. And they were based on those scores, as well as a lot of teachers also looked at how much participation a student had during that time that they were online, which we know that was really tricky, especially for our youngest students. So our highest population that was referred was our kindergarten and first graders. And I'm really excited to report some of the results that we had with them. But we had 86 students who were referred K-5, because our program is students who are going into first grade and through fifth grade, going into fifth grade. And we had 86 students who were referred to Torrington, we had 63 that came. This year we did something a little bit different, because usually our summer school goes from 8 till noon, and students get breakfast and lunch as well. This year we had to, because of our numbers, break it up into smaller sections so that we were able to have the social distancing that we were required to follow along with. And it was pretty exciting because the kids who came, they were there for, except for Southeast, because they had smaller numbers, so they went ahead and went the whole time. But the kids who came, they came for 2.5 hours of instruction and their meals. And then they also got to take, so our morning group got to take lunch home. And then our lunch group, our afternoon group got to take breakfast home. So they still had that opportunity for the food part of what they were doing. But it was fun and exciting because the kids had been out of school and they were excited to be there. And the teachers have told me that they're not sure if it was the fact that it was 2.5 hours of intenseness, or if it was the fact that they were just so excited to be back around their friends, be back around their teachers, be back in a school setting. We held it this year at Trail, and so that was kind of fun too. I heard one of my old kindergartners that's going into first grade when they were coming in to register, and he said, "Oh, you go to the summer school," meaning Trail. That to him now is the summer school. And so that was pretty fun and exciting when they could do that. It also was great to be able to have the kids in the building. In June, we did some extended school year things with some of our students who were on IPs. And one of my kindergartners came in and he walks in and he's like, "Oh, where are all my friends?" So the kids they do need that socializing. They do need to be there, it's evident. We worked really hard to make sure that we were abiding by the rules and regulations that we were required. Was it easy? No. I'm talking about kindergartners having to do some of the social distancing. It's hard for me as a principal. I'm a heavy person and the kids love that. And so that is tricky, but we have to be able to do that, and they know the kids that we have there are doing it and try to abide by that as much as they could too. That's part of the reason why we went with the small numbers this year, was to be able to have that social distancing without impacting them with that extra learning that we knew they needed to have. Especially with our kindergartners and first graders, that they need to be able to see what's happening with their mouths and when they're reading and doing those different things. Lakeville had 25 referrals and had 16 students who attended. And Southeast had 22 recommendations and had 12 students who attended K5. As an average, our scores, when we gave the STAR test at the beginning, it was like our first day that we came in for summer school, had dropped from the scores that we had given in January, which is pretty normal in the sense that they missed a lot of that school. But in just those 4 weeks that we had our students, we had 82% that improved their score, their reading score, 90% that improved their math score. That jump might have been 1 or 2 points. Some of them were 10 points, some of them were 20 points. As far as the percentage, but they made those gains just by having that time and being in the classroom. I think for me, what I love most about summer school, besides getting to be with the students, is how we all come together. And Mr. Clinton can say this as well, and Trina. Transportation, they worked their butt off to get our schedule figured out, trying to figure out where the kids are, and how we're going to get them to school and get them there safely. This year especially was a little tricky in that sense, working around all of our schedules. Tech, trying to make sure that we have the materials and the input and output of technology that we needed. Food service, amazing this summer, and continued it through summer school. They would push cart our lunches and our breakfasts and in rotations down the hall, knocking over trash cans, I didn't mean to, but I did. And it was just amazing to see all of us come together. Central staff working with them and helping to get that together. I know that they had to take a lot of phone calls because people were trying to figure out, we were trying to figure out what that summer school was going to look like. Trying to keep that communication, and I appreciate the parents that were being proactive and calling and finding out those answers. Trail, we thank Trail for being there and letting us use their building, and the custodians who had to work extra hard to do that extra cleaning up for us. Our teachers had 30 minutes in between groups, so they did a lot of the sterilizing during or in between their groups. And then the custodians had to do before school, after school, and then kind of in between a little bit as well, making sure that we had everything that we needed. So I'm thankful that we have a summer school program. I hope that it's something that we get to continue with because I do see the growth. I do see it being a jump start. This year we were using it as a jump start, trying to get them prepared for what they were going to be starting with at the beginning of this year, since we missed that 5 months of school that they had. So, there's a board. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Sims. I always am so grateful to your staff and Paris and everybody involved in elementary jumpstart, summer school, whatever. It's a wonderful benefit for our students. Thank you. Mr. Plendel.
Good evening, everyone. I always appreciate the opportunity to talk with you. Unfortunately, I get to continue with, I've got a lot of good news to share with you tonight. Summer school was a great success. You know, when all this kind of hit, even in April, we started, can we have summer school? And we faced a lot of fears, worry, concerns, uncertainty. How are we going to do this? And what I'm going to say a lot of thank yous here in this presentation. You know, everybody worked together. It was great. Parents were fantastic. Kids were great. All the different things, whether it was IT, all the different departments, where we had every opportunity to have things go completely wrong. This was the smoothest of the 4 summers I've done summer school. It was the most enjoyable. You know, it was. To see those kids that first day, they were genuinely excited. I'll remind you, these are the kids that struggle the most in our school. When I get to the high school portion, I can't wait to tell you about some of the success we had there. It was genuine. I've got goosebumps. I wish you could see it. I wish I could call you. I wish I could, but to see what we were able to share with their parents and those kids walking out, how good that went, that's not garbage. I'm not spinning this to make it. So this was honest and sincere. So we had a lot of great things going on. I'd like to thank our staff. We started asking in April, are you willing to teach summer school? I don't know how it's going to go, but are you even willing to? So I as a principal, I would take in between high school and middle school, I'd start a brand new school with all these people. They're just tremendous in building relationships. And they really did a great job with it. Paraprofessionals listed here were fantastic. I really want to thank Mrs. Wakeland. Obviously, we didn't send any letters home, all those personal calls to every single student that was referred to in 6th, 7th, or 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The middle school, or Trail did that for us for the 5th graders, but for everybody else, Mrs. Wakeland actually kind of beat me to it. It was so well received by the time, all right, no. We only had one of them. We didn't have any negativity, even if they said no, that they weren't going to come. So we had nearly 100 referred to us. We landed early on 68, and then after some things happened within the community and people talked, and it got to 60. And then there were a couple of reported cases 3 days before we started, so we called one at a time, and 8 more people opted out. So we had 51 5th through 8th graders go through summer school, at least parts of it. That kind of thing. So also want to thank, we had a summer school intern, Brody Epler, yes, he's the graduate of Southeast, son of Mr. Messel. But having 2 buildings this year, we had it, we were originally working to have it at all at THS because of the intercom project, so we'd be out of their way. But we went back there so we could have science, so we could use it, get in there. We could kind of stand in the middle and spread it out in 3 rooms, so all 3 entrances to those rooms together weren't great. So, Mr. Epler, I really asked him, he logged in as every single middle school kid before we had summer school to make sure the computers worked. We got everything fixed. I did not want to have summer school on the first day, and I went home, hey, how's summer school go? The parents asked. We didn't do anything because the computers didn't work. Didn't happen one time, they're ready to go, we hit it running, so I really want to thank him from the get-go. He allowed me to start at the high school. Mrs. Wagland and Mr. Epler checked in, we had it spread out, I had the chalk lines, some of them were still there, I measured everything out. And, you know, on all this stuff, kids got it, they got it very quickly. Within a couple of, honestly, by Wednesday, it was routine the rest of the way. It really was. It went that smoothly. So Mr. Epler was just a tremendous help with everything, and I think he had a good summer school experience. What time did you decide if you want to be a principal someday? Dealing with this, so I just really would like to thank him on that. You know what? At both buildings, our custodial staff was phenomenal. I mean, we asked them to do a ton, and they take on some things that you need to think about. I mean, we did go with the 2-hour session. It really did pay off. We had it down to the wire, getting in, cleaning everything, getting the fog to stop. We could get back safely in there. They were fantastic. Never once squawked about anything. So Amado Saldana and his crew were fantastic at the middle school working. I'll say the same thing when I get to the high school portion. We unfortunately were not able to have as much fun in middle school. If you recall, we usually have a different theme. We had the eclipse a couple of years ago. We had call from home. This year it was, you know, we just went with Jumpstart as a jumpstart to the coming year. So we had it in July this year instead of June. And I think parents really liked that from what they were telling us. You know, more than one. When I say we had compliments and things, I mean, we had a lot of communication going on, but they seem to really like that. I just want to emphasize again to go through these key points. Students were honestly excited to be back in school and learning was fun. That was probably one of the best things, and actually it was fun. It was nice. Very little discipline problems. It was great teamwork between everybody. We did go with Monday through Thursday. That really paid off. For whatever reason, Friday in summer school, as they get older, kind of seems like a punishment. So not having that actually kept Thursday really rolling good. You know, it's kind of a test thing, but I would say that worked out. We had 16 hours per subject. We did have some students do double math. We did have 4 students do double language arts. So that worked out good. So, but there was we had a lot less hours than we normally do. But you know what? I remember being a kid. You know, kids aren't stupid. You sit there presenting at that age. This is what. This is why. This is how. This is how we're going to help you. And they went with it. So they got it, and we worked hard. So we worked an hour in math. Get a couple minutes as we went in our rotation to basically to do that. We went to language arts. If you did double math, you got to drink out of your own bottle. I mean, we had everything down. We had how we sanitized the computers, had Ziploc bags for everybody, had their own marker, their own eraser, all that stuff. Mr. Cutler kind of handled that because we got in a routine. How do we do this? We really did follow this stuff. It worked. Right there, you can read through the curriculum there, what we did. Ms. Snyder just does a phenomenal job of teaching both reading and writing. I just think she does fantastic. And it keeps what could be a subject that's difficult for kids to write. If you can see the writing that actually was done, that's what I'm probably most proud of. Not always different definitive numbers, measuring that, but how they did and how they did their assignments on that, I thought it was very well received by the kids. The math teachers, they would teach a concept, and then the students started working on Excel and worked through there. We did not get to use a learning history program that has been successful in the past because last year it didn't. And they even with Pete standing there, their IT guys couldn't communicate and make it work. They sure were concerned when we did a review in the fall. It don't work, we're not going to waste money. But it was a nice program. So getting to Excel, we have to go. Payoff would be if they were familiar with it. These kids came to summer school with that. We were able to do some things with the incoming 6th graders, so they didn't get to take their tour and their other welcome to TMS, and we were able to take care of that. So at least for 18 of them, they didn't have manual parts of the building because we didn't go very many places on that. So again, I just really appreciated the work ethic and passion of the staff to work with them. We did still start data. If we had data on a kid, we did not test them. We used that. So in math, we had 17 students show growth, 13 showed minor loss, and 1 showed no change in language arts. 19 students who grew up and 12 showed a minor loss. Had we tested everybody at the beginning, I think we would only honestly would have 2 with the minor loss and the 1 no change. The one thing about the testing, I remind you, these are kids that struggle, so we have a lot of accommodations when we have the formal testing. We have 16 days. Also, if we didn't test on the first day, I didn't want, hey, haven't seen you in 5 months. Happy to see you. Here we go. Here's your test. That wasn't going to work, in my opinion. We got started after 2 days, got to establish how things were going to work. Then we tested the ones that needed it. And then at the end, if you recall, on July 30th, we had a really nice, steady rain that morning. That was also the last day of summer school. And that was the worst day of attendance there. So, and the kids that rode the bikes at summer school, they show up. We've battled that, finished testing every year that I've done this, tried to pick them out really last year, we got most of it done. But we kind of ran out of time there, so that's why some of those students didn't complete. And some got started, but with some of the accommodation, it takes you 2 days. Let's see. Just got a lot of thank yous in there on that, so any questions about those? High school usually goes a little quicker right there. Again, just fantastic staff. We kept science over at the high school, as I earlier discussed, so we could spread everybody out. We learned a lot of things, whether it's what's going to happen here next week and how this can work cleaning wise, otherwise. We also worked at the social distancing and really kind of worked anyway. We had, obviously we know the kids, so we shouldn't be in the same room together. That really worked. It was neat. So again, I just want to thank everybody that's listed up there. Again, I want to hit the custodians, Mr. McCarty, Carol Watson, their crew. Again, up there, they did better than I thought they would do. They're all over. I don't want to wish my life away, but I'm not going to lie. Every day I was waiting for July 30th to get here. And now that we're 2 weeks away from summer school, we got through summer school. We wore the masks. Kids didn't. I'm not going to get into that discussion. We didn't wear it because we could keep them apart. We can't do that in regular school. We didn't have any cases coming out of summer school that were wearing any fashion. We did send kids home. And parents were good. There wasn't one parent that complained about it. We did stop them. We asked the questions. Found out a couple of them. When we got more specific, that's not really we can stay. A couple of them we can't really go home. They went. The cooperation is fantastic. And you would have thought there would have been a lot of swapping. So in high school, we had 27 students attend. They are 35 credits, makeup credits. We had 23 science credits earned, 4 math, 7 English, and 1 history. We really worked hard this year to try to get that number down. So a lot more kids passing, a lot less kids in summer school. So we've made progress in the time I've been here. We had 2 students not complete because of attendance issues in spite of going and getting and trying to get them to come out and get in the car and come with us. They just refused to do it, stuck with battle. We had incompletes from the second semester. So we used our summer school time with the teachers being there, and we were able to get 9 students to complete 10 classes, and we are still working on trying to get some more students to come in and finish up the last little part. Looking over there, I just tell you, if you look at that second bullet point, again, I got goosebumps. The kids, some of these kids that have struggled. I spent a lot of time with them as an administrator and just to see them just battle through something where they were stuck and they took on their challenges with support. They did it. And I tell you what, that was so much fun because if they get their work done, that's kind of the carrot. If they legitimately get all their tests done, all their assessments, they can get out early. As long as they do all the work to a proficient level. It's nice making positive phone calls. It's nice sharing that. It's nice having that victory. And to be able to share that with someone. I'll tell you what, I'm excited to see how we really talked it up, so I'll be anxious to see how that momentum can carry into August into this fall with those students. I also want to side note to thank you. I'm really excited about the alternative school. I know it works. I've seen it my whole career when I was in Omaha. I know it'll work here. I think it's going to serve the kids that go there well. That's one reason I was willing to come back when I made the decision on my own, because I am really appreciative of that. And as long as I'm here, we're gonna work for 100% graduation from each kid that comes to our school. And I won't back down from that. So we are down in our numbers that for the seniors that have no room in error, considerably down from where we have been. There are still some, and Mrs. Locker and Mrs. Leonard have already had communicated with those. And so 100% graduation or in diploma on time is the goal. That's where I'm at. So I just want to thank you for letting us have summer school. Hopefully that helps in some of the decision making that's been going on. Was every kid 6 feet apart every second of the time? No. But we didn't have to walk around with yardsticks, midgets. They got it. They learned. They adjust. This is one of the few times I haven't been like this in the last 5 months. You can just parent tell you I run this all the time. I took it down so I could talk there. I'm used to it. I do it because of my wife. She's got some health issues. I can't afford to have something happen at home. It would be catastrophic to our family if that happened. So to me, we just get used to it. It's like any other thing that's new or different. We'll roll with it. And like I said, I just thought the whole summer school experience was very positive. And I hope it's reassuring to all of you, and I hope it was reassuring to the parents. Just that when we went through this, this works. And when there was honest teamwork, sincere teamwork, work together. So ask questions. We have questions every day. I don't mind questions. That's what I'm there for. Oh yeah, I'll tell you why, I'll tell you how. I don't know. I'll find out, get back to you. Nothing to hide about it. So we made it work, and it worked. Thank you. Got any questions about high school or anything like that? Anything else? Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pleindle, for staying with us another year. Okay, all right, and we will skip Mrs. Nickel this time because she could not attend tonight, but we'll hear from her at a later date. Right now, we are at the consent agenda. Are there any items that that anyone would like to pull from the consent agenda?
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull items I, J, and K.
And that's Mr. Jesperson.
Yes.
Any others? All right, except for items I, J, and K, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve. Christine Miller.
Is there a second? All right, is there any discussion about the consent agenda except for items I, J, and K? And I would like to extend our deepest thanks to Torrington Community Hospital and Banner Health for their donation of masks. That will be incredibly helpful for our district and our students and all our employees. So thank you very much for helping facilitate that, Trustee Miller. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I ask all trustees who wish to approve of the consent agenda items, absent items I, J, and K, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. At this time, Mr. Jesperson, would you like to offer a motion regarding item I? So that it can be brought forward for discussion.
Sure, I move to approve the contract with Star Autism.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve contracting with Star Autism Support. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Jesperson. I pulled this, and we should be thankful that I actually remembered from one meeting to another that we approved the contract last meeting for Star Autism support in the amount of 12,000. It's in the minutes, Steve, I went back and found it. So my question is, what is this one? Why is it different?
Ryan Kramer, Superintendent. I would not, unfortunately, since Ms. Nicole is not here to answer that question, I would actually and recommend that we table that item until the next meeting for approval.
Would Mrs. Fields have any information?
I can certainly ask. Mrs. Fields, would you have any information on that?
I am not sure what that is about for the second one. I was trying to text Trina before you made a decision, but she has not responded yet, so I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I would amend my motion to table this until we can get that question answered.
Until further information can be supplied?
Please.
All right. Is there a second for the tabling of that motion? Or do we need one?
Carrie needs to.
I would second it.
Okay. All those, is there any further discussion about this item? All those in favor of tabling the approval of item I, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? And item I has been tabled. Item J.
Madam Chair, this is Trustee Jesperson. I move to approve the request to exception to district policy 5150-R.5.
Is there a second for that motion? And Trustee Saucedo has seconded that. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'm asked to at least have some discussion on this because I don't know how many more times this is going to happen. Hopefully just this once. And we had there was an email thread where we discussed where there's a few policies we have that are kind of in conflict with some things that are happening current day and age. I think this is another policy that we need to look at, maybe add to that list. Again, hoping that this is really the only exception we would have to grant. But in that discussion that we have in the future about these policies, I would ask that we suspend this one also in the event of any sort of when we have a conflict with the Wyoming High School Activities Association sanctioned event, where it's a contest or a regional state festival, whatever. So I'm good with this exception. I think we should look at suspending this if we continue to see what we're seeing.
Or modifying the policy, the wording of the policy?
Madam Chair, may I ask Mr. Lashley to comment on this because I think it's actually completely COVID related.
Oh, okay.
For this change.
Sure, and I understand what the reason is because I'm well versed in what's happening with volleyball. So Lashley is more welcome to comment too.
I think maybe just to kind of give us some insight on the reason, but I mean, what you said relating to policy, I agree. I think in many of the circumstances, if there was not this situation, probably they would be usually interested in doing it on tonight. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Lashley to comment.
Chairman Patrick, members of the board, thank you. You are correct. This was generated by the fact that the WHSA is splitting up their volleyball tournaments to single day tournaments. The 1A tournament will be on Wednesday, 2A on Thursday, 3A on Friday, and the 4A on Saturday. It looks to me like if you'd make it to the final round, there'd be no way that we could get back. So we would need this exemption. Trustee Jesperson, Southeast is also going to be, because they're a 1A school now, they will also be requesting an exemption, I'm sure. I don't want to speak for them, but I imagine they will be. I also echo Trustee Jesperson's concerns. This could, this happened because of COVID, but any particular year, if something had to be moved up, maybe there's a bad snowstorm or who knows what with a culminating event, and it gets moved at the last minute, it would be very difficult to gain board approval for something like this. And I can't imagine that the board is going to say, no, sorry, kids, you can't, go to your state culminating event. I don't imagine that would happen. So it might be a wise decision to make some adjustments like Trustee Jesperson recommended.
Thank you, Mr. Lashley. Is
Thank
there
you.
any further discussion on item J? Hearing none, I'd ask each trustee who wishes to approve this request to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? And this item was approved unanimously. Item K, is there a motion?
Madam Chair, Trustee Jesperson, I move to accept the resignation submitted by Christine Quillen.
Is there a second? Trustee Saucedo seems to indicate he would second that motion. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, personally, I'm not a fan of resignations being in the consent agenda. I think moving them outside of that gives us an opportunity to thank those folks who have committed so much of their time to our kids. I have a special place in my heart for special education teachers. My sister was a special ed student when we were in school. I know what it takes to help those kids along. And also with Miss Quillen, I believe it was last year, not this, it was 2 years ago in the fall at state drama. They left state drama thinking they had won state. The next Monday, I believe it was the following Monday, they received the rubrics, the scorecards. So she went through and recalculated and determined there was an error. And let the powers that be know, and it was determined that they ended up getting runner-up, or I can't remember. But I think that speaks to the character of Ms. Quillen, not only as a special education teacher, but as a drama instructor, and just as a person. And so I think I just wanted to recognize those attributes. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Jesperson. And I would echo your sentiments exactly. I have heard just through gossip that this is a possible health issue. So our thoughts certainly go out to Mrs. Quillen at this time. Any further discussion on item K?
I'll take my mask off so I can speak up a little bit. I would have to agree with you. I think that if we can move those type of things to new business, it would give us the opportunity to address those teachers and what they've given to this district. And so, yeah, I'd like to see that as well.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Billington. All those in favor of accepting this resignation, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Any dissension or abstention, excuse me. And that has been accepted unanimously. We're on to old business. We are considering the approval of the proposed policy revisions as presented on second and final reading. Is there a motion?
Trustee Miller, move to approve.
Trustee Miller is moving to approve. Is there a second?
Second, Trustee Clayton.
Thank you, Trustee Clayton and Trustee Miller. Is there any discussion?
Trustee Jesperson, this was one of the policies that we had in discussion in our last policy committee meeting. I know there was some discussion about maybe some additional changes we were going to make to about honor students, graduation requirements, valedictorian, salutatorian. Is that something that we're going to continue to pursue, but this just needs to be in for now?
And those will also appear, Superintendent Kramer, those will also appear in the handbooks for the individual schools, as we discussed.
Is that all? Does that satisfy your concerns about those? Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask the trustees who wish to approve of these policy revisions to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? And that has passed unanimously. And we are on to new business. First item is to consider the approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for district cleaning and disinfecting materials. Is there a motion?
Trustee Jesperson, move to approve.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Madam Chairman,
Sir.
I'd just like some clarification, please. Last meeting, we approved $18,954.46. We also approved in the consent agenda $6,321.33. And in this one, we're talking about $16,999.65. So we're talking almost $42,000. Is it going to take more than this, or are we kind of done with?
I'm quite confident we'll take more than that. These are CARES dollars. I don't know if Marcy has anything else to add to that in relation to our expenditures for cleaning supplies are skyrocketing because of the requirements set forth that in the different materials and things, and we still may see some other items, but I'll let Marcy explain some of the things that were purchased with those 3 different expenditures.
Mr. Kramer and I met with the head custodians this afternoon, and in visiting with them, they have what they need to start the school year, but we do have a number of items on back order. And some of these items are going to be some of those back ordered items, but there are a lot of additional cleaning products, disinfectants, sanitizing. Schools are being asked at the secondary level to have desks and workstations cleaned in between students. That was not the norm. So as students pass, they're cleaning. As students get off buses, they're cleaning those spaces. So it is taking a lot more materials than what it did in the past.
Sir.
I'm supposing that these chemicals that are being used for disinfecting, they have labels that tell certain things. One of the parents asked that, if there's an allergic reaction, what's going to be then. Have we got any thought on that for safety?
I do, but I'm going to check with Marcy first, and I'll kind of speak after she maybe either has already a plan for that.
We have the manufacturer safety data sheets for all of these items, and everything is labeled. Tonight was the first that I heard a request for actual items, but it would be very easy to provide that. The schools are uniform, but that would be very easy to provide.
I would concur with exactly that statement. With my thoughts relating to that question would be, it'd be not a problem to be able to post exactly what we're utilizing on our website, so parents would have that information.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Certainly. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask the trustees who wish to approve of this purchase to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions. That has been unanimously passed. Item B, we are considering the approval of contracting with Landscaping Plus for sprinkler system and sod at the district track. Is there a motion?
Move to approve. Trustee Clayton.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Second, Jesperson.
Any discussion?
Trustee Clayton, I was unable to attend that meeting, but I think you were able to. And trustee, if either of you would want to add any information for the other trustees on that, I'd certainly welcome that. Or Marcy, if you have anything to add, either as the 3 of you were there. I know that it's a.
Okay. So this location, you can see some around it. It's just right over here, right next to the track. There's trees that have been planted. I'm not sure what the ground cover was at one time, but now it's pretty bad. It's definitely not where you want your kids to play. This came up on our agenda a year or so ago as turning it into a parking lot, paving it, and then possibly even selling the parking spaces to individuals who wanted to buy them. However, that money would have come out of general funds, I believe. This money to actually just turn it into a landscape where it's grass where kids could actually play. It's out of major maintenance, is what we realized. So, yeah, questions about major maintenance or general funds, Marcy would definitely, Mrs. Cage would definitely be the one to address that with. But that's kind of the gist. We're definitely have a savings here. It's not affecting our normal school operating budget.
And what Trustee Clayton was exactly correct. This would be taking the dirt. It was put in as zero-scaping. It was not a good plan, but this will be taking the ground cover and putting in a sprinkler system and then installing sod right around the trees. It will improve the aesthetics of that area as well as providing an area for kids to play.
Was there a functional issue with that area with the track? I mean, I know on the other end we had dirt rolling in, or I mean, is there other than aesthetics, is there a problem also with that area?
Can I speak to that?
Yep.
I think that is also like we had the problem with the north side of the dust blowing onto. We are experiencing that same issue with the south side and with the granules from that dirt. There's a tendency as the wind in Wyoming blows that it actually reduces the lifespan of our all-weather track with those particles comparatively to grass, which would hopefully not produce as much dust onto the track. It has made a difference on the north side by some of our precautions that we put in place with the fence there. So we're hoping that same thing can be done on the south.
Any further discussion, questions, suggestions? Hearing none, I'd ask each trustee who would like to approve of this contract to please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And abstentions? And that item passed unanimously. Item C, we are considering the approval of contracting with MSI for heating line repair at Lingle Fort Laramie High School. Is there a motion?
So moved, Trustee Wagner.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Is this also a major maintenance?
That is correct.
Could I request that we put source of funding on these agendas in the future, please? Yeah, I mean, I know it's in there, but if we can.
And this is one of those situations, fortunately, it was found during this time of year as opposed to middle of winter when there might be a rush to have that completed. And so we can get that job done before and completed before we have a need for that.
Does this cause any damage to this? I mean, you say it's something collapsed, I envision that there's other damage involved.
I would ask Mrs. Cates to answer that question.
That issue with the line collapsing has been researched. We've had the contractor on site, and this $36,000 will take care of the issues.
Right, what kind of damage did it cause besides the line being collapsed and we don't have a heating line? Did it?
That's the damage.
That's just okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask each trustee who wishes to approve of this contract to signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? And that item passed unanimously. Item D, we have a revision of that agenda item on our addendum. We are asking the trustees to consider the approval of contracting with Edmentum for virtual curriculum for district students in grades 6-12 only, not K-12. So just so that is in your mind. Is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Salcido. Any discussion?
So the adjustment is just for, sorry, I'm trying, just for 6 through 12. So we're not, I guess, so that lowers the cost that we were considering considerably.
Yes, very much considerably. And the reason for that is we were initially looking at Adventum as school-wide programs. And what we've done is change that to individual licenses for those that have requested. And so what we're able to do then is just purchase for those students that have currently requested. In K through 5, that actual expenditure is less than $5,000 currently. And so 6 through 12 does exceed 5,000 and therefore would be needing to exceed and go to the board for approval.
So I apologize, this is Jesperson. So some concerns were brought up during public forum about this program. So I guess my question is, what have we done to make, because I'm sure that those concerns have been brought up for the time frame that she was referencing. So have we looked into how have we kind of addressed those concerns? Do we feel comfortable that this program is going to work as we envision it?
In 6 through 12, that actually will be the program that Platte River High School will also utilize. There are assigned teachers to that program, and the familiarity will have also increased with those individual teachers and their priority and set forth to instruct in that area and their knowledge of that curriculum, which was possibly a situation that was not there initially for utilizing the Adventum program for some of our homebound students.
So the instructors will be instructors that are here within our system.
That is correct. They certified teachers within the school district. That's correct. These are not employees that are employed through Adventum. These are Goshen County employees delivering the program or acting as the facilitator.
It's unfortunate in some situations, the educator, the educator could have been somebody who's just in all different states.
That is correct. I believe actually in not last year, but the previous year, that Goshen County was offering a French course through that program, and that is what they were able to provide as an instructor off-site for that, because there was nobody within Goshen County School District that was certified in that area. We do not intend to have any courses that we do not have certification for at Goshen County.
And the program that we used for the French was Fuel Education. It was not Edmonton.
I apologize, but I do not believe the Smart Start plan. However, if we move clear to the most restricted level, is the board going to need to reconsider additional licenses in order to expand this dramatically throughout the district?
Mrs. Field, would you be able to address that piece with the tier 3? I don't know if you're able to hear Trustee Miller on that, and I can certainly summarize if needed.
I believe he asked that if we went to tier 3, would we utilize Edmonton as our core program? That was a consideration for us, definitely. And if we could afford the funding, that would be a good support for our teachers. We wrote the original proposal to you, because we needed time to go through the grants and the ESSER funding to see if we were able to find it, but we just could not find the funding to do that. However, I do believe, and our K-5 for sure teachers really preferred not to use Edmonton in a tier 3 model. They preferred that every teacher, even K-12, would have the exact same lesson plans, delivering extremely similar assignments, still being able to use their own special tones and stuff such with teaching, but that everyone would use the exact same lesson plan through the district, K-12. Our 6-12 teachers that we visited with, which was a small number, would have preferred to have Edmonton as a supplement with that. I will tell you that.
Does that address your concern, Trustee Miller?
Yes and no. I'll address the remainder in board topics.
Okay, certainly. Any further discussion of this item?
May I say one more thing?
Certainly.
Just so you know, just based on the numbers of students that are applying for virtual education and remote education, or I should say virtual education, there may be a chance that we come back for additional licensing for this in our 1B plan. This morning we were sitting at about 6 to 8 students, and now we're probably up to 20 that are choosing remote and or virtual education right now.
So that will necessitate more licenses.
Yes, it will necessitate more license if we need to purchase more, yes.
Thank you for that
And
information.
I'll clarify one more thing for you. There is not a great online curriculum that replaces teachers. So I have not heard the concern from the students that took the Edmonton program. However, I do know several districts in the state are using Edmonton. There is nothing that replaces a teacher in front of you, though, in my opinion.
I don't think you'll find much disagreement here. Any further discussion about item D? Hearing none, I'd ask each trustee who wishes to approve of contracting with Edmonton for the reduced amount as delineated in our addendum, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? That item passed unanimously. And we are on to item E, where we're considering the approval of extracurricular activity spectator guidelines. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second, trustee Clayton.
Discussion on this item.
May I provide some background information for trustees to have at least in making this decision?
Absolutely, please do.
So in this situation currently, the variance applied for the Wyoming High School Athletic Association allows for indoor events such as volleyball this fall to increase the amount of attendees to 250. That is if social distancing can be maintained. So as we estimate in our facilities, in Lingo, Fort Laramie, that would allow us to have 48 spectators. At Southeast, that would allow us to have 45. At THS, approximately 100. And at TMS, that would allow us to have 45. What has also been agreed upon with the conference that THS is affiliated with is 30% of whatever the spectator amount is dictated is provided to the visiting fans. So what our plan is then is to allocate then to our players the remainder of those seats. So in essence then for THS, and I can use that as an example, there would be 70 remaining seats available for our athletes to have, parents, grandparents, and of course, when we have approximately 50 volleyball players, this will be less than 2 per student that will be allowed to attend those events. If we do have a face covering expectation, this allows us to increase that number to 250. And so therefore we would be able to drastically increase the number that the players would be able to invite to an athletic event. Currently, we're looking also at our outside venues as our football fields can now have 250 at the event. And if we were, and I have not looked at it for sure in regards to what that number could possibly be, whether we can just apply for the variance in regards to increasing that, or what that could possibly look like if we were to apply for a variance, which we would have the expectation that attendees would have face coverings. It is our hope, because we have a football schedule for THS that is significantly robust with visiting fans. And if we're having to reduce that number of individuals that can attend down to 250, we're probably looking again at most football players being only able to have one or two individuals attend based on their list of coming to the game. And having that face covering requirement again would increase dramatically our ability to accommodate more family members attending events. I know this is a difficult decision, as we just had a decision last week in regards to something similar. I believe this is kind of unique in regards to, as a parent of a junior in high school, I don't want to be the only one to go watch my kid. I want every single one of my family members, including my parents and both his sets of grandparents, if possible, to attend a game and travel to a game. And so I believe any way I can possibly watch my child compete in the thing or activity they want to do, just tell me what I have to do, because that's what I'm going to do. Now, I know, again, this is a situation in which there's very differing, as we heard, opinions on this subject, and it is a very challenging decision. So I'm open to any option or idea in regards to this, but I wanted to present you with the facts in relation to what it looks like for the numbers and what we could do.
Please.
This is Christine Miller. I've got a couple of questions about visiting teams for Mr. Kramer. You said it was 30%.
So as part of the conference affiliation that Torrington High School is a part of, it is set at 30% as a conference agreement.
For Torrington?
For just Torrington, yes. That is not the same in other schools. But I would highly suggest, and I don't know what percentage that might be, but that we do allow visiting fans, because honestly, if it were me, I would prefer actually to have to miss home events, because I know the coverage that is provided for Goshen County schools via the closed circuit NHFS circuit TV is fantastic. And I can watch home games, and I can watch that. When I go to away events, and this is what I'm fearful, if we say we wouldn't allow visiting fans, I guarantee you we would not be allowed at their home events either. And that in turn would really not sit well with me in denying me, and again, an opportunity to watch my child compete. And again, that is significantly important for me as a parent to watch that. And so I don't know, there's no set. It was a conference piece, because there was, quite honestly, there was a discussion in that conference of one school in particular saying, we're not going to allow fans. And the conference got together and worked together. And I was hoping the Wyoming High School Athletic Association would set that also, at least with some guidance, so we could have some fair principles across the board. But they have yet to do so. And that may change when other things come out. But we know we have very unique facilities also around the state.
Would there be possibility for outdoor sports, football, in the stadiums to put up some fencing, caution tape, something, and separate visiting stands from home stands? You would obviously have to probably pull in some kind of bathroom facility, porta potty or something. Would there be opportunity to make it 250 for each outdoor set of stands? Would that be an option?
Currently, they're just allowing 250. And that's the way it reads right now. But again, we can have options. Now, I don't know what could possibly be approved. I know that obviously with the current state health orders and knowing social distancing requirements, if face coverings are provided or mandatory. And the other piece with that, I had an excellent question this morning. How are we going, or what's going to happen at an event if we do require face coverings and a father or mother or sibling, removes their face covering. And what my answer was is I don't have the expectation that our activities directors are enforcers immediately and running up into the stands and those things. But I would have an expectation that the next time they see that same individual, that could potentially cost us postseason, honestly. If we're not following, if we know social media, if we have things that occur and social distancing isn't occurring at our events, I can guarantee you a visiting fan or someone will post on social media that we are not following the expectations. And if I'm one of the members of the Wyoming High School Athletic Association and I see Goshen County had applied for this variance or we have this expectation and they're not following it, how would I ever let them host a postseason activity? And I think that's one of our responsibilities as a community. When we know in any direction that the trustees choose in this situation, we're going to have some rules we're going to have to follow. But we need to follow the rules. We don't have to be told constantly to follow the rules. We know them. And I've been in situations where that's difficult. But if it costs a postseason event for our kids to compete at home, I'm going to be pretty upset with people who can't follow expectations that we set that are relatively simple. And we put our neighbors and our friends in really difficult positions that they don't want to find themselves because we feel it's challenging. And I realize again, I do not, there are multiple sides of this conversation and it is very difficult to understand and there's all sorts of different avenues to go from for this. But I think as many of us and every one of our trustees as a parent, that's kind of where, when we talk about activities and those events, there's a little bit difference in the way I kind of comprehend some of those situations.
Any further discussion?
So this is Trustee Jesperson. So I went and pulled the Wyoming High School Activity Association Smart Start Fall Sport Guidelines, just because I was curious how we were lining up with them. And I expected it's pretty gray, but I mean, it's gray, but it's not. Like, they have these requirements, expectations, and it all kind of fits in with the social distancing, face covering, limiting the number of spectators. There's some things that I question, but it's not for us to answer. It's really me taking the time to call Casper and probably ask questions about what they mean by certain things in here. One thing that I guess this relates to, there's an overall requirement and then there's a bullet point for spectators, and the sentence says, schools should consider limiting spectators to immediate family members or parents if required to allow social distancing in space. Should consider. So I think we're meeting that, and I would agree that we should allow the visitors, because I've heard of some schools, not necessarily in our conference, but in other, and again, every town is different, every school is different, but there are some schools that aren't allowing fans at all. There are some schools that aren't allowing visiting fans. And so I think by us being flexible and allowing that, it creates just some goodwill among our schools and our competing schools to get through this together. The one thing that alarms me about this, and again, it's a question for Casper, not for us to answer, is when they talk about tier 3, when a particular, and this is right from their guidelines here, when a particular school is in tier 3, all sports for that school will cease until the district transitions back to tier 2. And then once back in tier 2, they have some guidelines for tier 2, and it seems like we can participate with these. Again, I think the question that I need to ask Casper, somebody needs to ask Casper, and maybe somebody already has, and if they have, maybe they can speak up, but when they're talking about moving into tier 2, tier 3, is that based on something that happens with us, or does the Activities Association determine, like, because, and I'm sorry, I'm going to backtrack. There's a section here in tier 2 that says, when a particular school has a positive COVID test, the school moves into tier 2 and so on. Well, it's almost like they're saying they're going to move us to tier 2 if we have somebody test positive. Now, I think that needs to be clarified as to what constitutes, like, who moves us into these tiers, because it certainly can't be the activities association.
You're correct, Superintendent Kramer speaking. That's correct. But that is the first time that I've heard that the Wyoming Activities Association would dictate tiers. I don't believe that, and I want to call Casper to confirm that, but everything that we have placed within our Smart Start plan, our tiers are actually in conjunction with our county health officials and state health officials using our data. In recent conversations with county health, they're working tomorrow actually to give us very specific, and hopefully, I'm hopeful that they will be able to accomplish that task, because it is difficult setting specific criteria for us to move from tier 1 to tier 2 to tier 3. Because I've been engaged in that question, not only for extracurricular activities, but obviously the educational setting. And it is absolutely not. I want to reiterate this as much as I possibly can. One case, 2 cases of students does not dictate necessarily our movement in tiers. It only deals with how we contact immediately upon our work with county health in relation to contact tracing for that individual student, and whether we have to go into quarantine for just that individual student, whether just that individual classroom that they're in, whether just that individual school or school members on a bus. And it is not a district-wide piece. In a lot of situations, this will be unique to each individual case. Now, if there reaches a certain percentage, and that's what the county health is going to work on, is yes, there may be a situation where they're saying you have this percentages of absences due to possibly either illness or COVID related illness. We're going to ask you to move to tier 3 or tier 2. But that is not something I've ever heard that the Wyoming High School Athletic Association would dictate. But I want to make sure and confirm that, Trustee Jesperson, because that language that you read certainly makes it sound differently than what I would interpret.
Right, and I mean, that part was alarming, but also whoever decides we have to move to tier 3, that's got significant ramifications about not being able to participate in our extracurriculars.
Absolutely.
So I guess keep that in mind as well. As much as I dislike that piece, we still have to consider it. Thank you.
This is Christine Miller speaking. I'm not one that wants to necessarily ask people to wear masks. I think that shouldn't be my decision, but I think that for the good of the community and people that want to attend sporting events, that they would probably, as you said, Mr. Kramer, be willing to wear a mask because they'll do whatever it takes. I'm wondering on this motion, there is no timeline.
Right now, I looked, and our first event that we will host is August 25th. If we are not applying for a variance or an exception to any of the rules, then we could make that decision August, of that week. Or obviously, we want to provide visiting fans an opportunity to have that. But you're absolutely right. If there is a desire to apply for a different variance or exception, I would suggest we do that as soon as possible, as in past experiences in applying for 11 different exceptions and variances, there is somewhat, if there's a rush on it, it sometimes is difficult to attain on a timely period.
I'm questioning more end time. I mean, this doesn't say 2021 school year. It doesn't say when health orders are listed. It's pretty open-ended of we're going to ask fans to require wearing a mask, and we don't have anything much defined here. So.
And that would be something too, and I know this is relating to this, but it's also relating to other factors. 100% Goshen County, in my piece, in my guidance, and my recommendations will come directly from state health orders. If those would change, that would be something we would decide locally, and I would make a recommendation that may be dealing with county health officials, but in relation to face covering requirements, my goal is to follow rules and expectations that are set forth, and if those would change at the state level, I would be advocating very significantly to follow those state health guidelines.
Would it be appropriate for me to make a couple comments here? This is Mike Lashley.
Mr. Lashley, I was wondering if you might be able to contribute to this.
Mr. Jesperson, you have the Smart Start plan in front of you.
Yes, sir.
I believe like in the very first couple sentences of the plan, it outlines in there that the state health department, when it mentions school activities, deferred that to the Wyoming High School Activities Association, and that we would have to follow the guidelines set forth by WHSAA. Does it say that right there?
I'm looking
right off the bat where it says on July 1. Are you on we're updated in August?
This is July 28th, 2020.
Okay, there's one that says it was updated like on August 3rd or something. And I will quote, I'll read from it right here. It says on July 1, the Wyoming Department of Education released its Smart Start guidance for reopening schools this fall. The guidance references activities and asks that school districts follow the guidance provided by the Wyoming High School Activities Association. The following document is WHSAA's Smart Start guidance for conducting activities this fall. So this is, I believe, the guidelines that we need to follow for activities. And it specifically, I think the question was asked, if I heard it correctly, about when would this end or whatever. These guidelines are for the fall activities only. I don't know if that clarifies anything or muddies the waters.
Thank you, Mr. Lashley. One question that I did have, and maybe you've been privy to this conversation, or Mr. Plendel, in regards to Mr. Jesperson's question on tiers and movement between those and who would be responsible for that movement.
I think the intent, and Mr. Plendel, is Mr. Plendel still there?
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
Okay, he might have to help me out on this, but I believe that they're trying to align the tiers with what the State Department of Ed had their tiers. The guidance that they gave us tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 that the governor released. I think WHSA's intent is to align with those. So it's not like their own set of tiers, but they're approaching it more from the activity standpoint.
And I neglected to also, Mr. Williams is also doing this via Zoom, so he is also available to answer.
And I would greatly appreciate if either of those two gentlemen also spoke up.
We met on August 3rd, the entire state, every union state met Casper. So we did the rescheduling meeting, so we've got the latest dates on what that is. I believe the same thing as if we get moved, it will come from only report to county health and the communication with Mr. Kramer and how we will have to move teams. Mr. Williams was on the football committee. I was on the volleyball committee for the state. We started meeting in April, determine what we do if this happens, this happens, this happens. So right now we're obviously starting school sports. One of the things that you consider, and I already met with tennis parents yesterday, if you want sports, we're going to have to follow these rules because you can be shut down at any time. And we're one of the worst things that is doing 35 years of education will stop the basketball team. In Casper, 5 months from tomorrow, 5 months ago from tomorrow, 2 boys in the thing, one is doorway, stop. We got to get back on the bus. Tournament's canceled. Can we come in and walk around? No. Can't we go to the bathroom? We can go to the restaurant right now. So there's a lot of things to consider on this. To me, but simply doing this, and we can get a lot more people in. I'd like you to consider a couple of things from the THS perspective. I did meet with Mr. Kramer. I'm hoping that we can go for a variance to get considerably more people into the stadium. Think about that. Our second game, our first home game was against Douglas. All of you that have lived here long enough, regardless of where you go to school, know that's a big game. Most of the stadium would be filled normally. The second home game is Glen Rock, an old opponent. Another game, Wheatland. The three closest Wyoming schools we play in football, we play at home. We have every opportunity to have a full stand if we can make that, if it's a true data variance, or a lot more in there. Think about what's going to happen when Southeast plays Lingle this fall. We'll only want 250 people there. Just think about managing that. Who doesn't get in? This is a nightmare situation. I mean, I'm going to have to tell parents. Monday I meet with the football parents. Tuesday I meet with the volleyball parents. This is how it's going to be. I think everybody's just going to be smiley happy about that. I'll certainly do my job, but it's not going to be very enjoyable. I mean, I'm going to call ahead. Don't go to Buffalo, show up and drove 4 hours. You're not on the list. You don't get in. You know, there's a ton of communication for all 3 of us ADs to be ahead of that. Who wants to go? And what do we do at home games? So, all right, freshman parents, you only got to print. Now you got to get out. I mean, I still have to say it nicer than that. And what do you do with the ones that have doubles? You know, JV freshmen, JV varsity. When you think about how many times we're going to stop people at the door, they can't come in. Well, this is the only time the grandparents showed up. Well, you didn't tell me. I didn't know ahead of time. I can't let them in. It ain't about me. It's about, just think about what we're doing to our patrons. I hope we get to have sports. I certainly don't want to be stopping parents and or grandparents and supporters. We're very well supported. I know the other 2 schools are too. I think about, I don't know what night, I think it's their 4th game at Lingo 7. Can you imagine being at the gate? Trying, hey, I'm gonna get workers that stop that. You're not on the list, you can't come in. Well, that's gonna be fun. That's not gonna be very well received. Put on a mask and we get a variance and we can let as many in. I think that's all it takes. If you don't like masks, I would think you might put up with that for that period of time. I want most people in. I want the kids to have the full experience. That's kind of where we're at. Look what we did all summer. We followed the rules. You can't tell me all the things that we heard from our coaches had to put up with and all our players at all 3 schools. Well, other people get to do all this. We can't do anything. We didn't get our variances approved until 1 week left before the dead period started. We follow the rules. And I think this is the way to support the kids and having as many people in the stands. What my opinion is, we just put that on. I would appreciate, I'll say it, I appreciate Mr. Kramer and the other ADs. We work very closely together along with the principals of all 3 schools. Be on the same page, so we're doing exactly the same thing and support. We're very well aware of what other schools have ignored and not gotten the variances. I will be contacted. I've been in communication with our Nebraska opponents. Once I find out what we decide tonight, that'll kind of complete what I've got to communicate with them about who can come. In volleyball, we host here in Scottsbluff. I'll find out exactly what happens when we play our first game of the year. Communicate to that our parents. Another thing to think about, most of you have been to the game. What happens on the northern end of the field by TMS? None of those kids can come watch. We're talking about 250 people. There is no more come to the game and watch. That really stinks, in my opinion. All we got to do is this, we can get a lot more people in, I actually consider doing that. As far as winter sports, we haven't got there. Yeah, I haven't published it on our school. Let's hope we have fall sports. We want to deal with winter as we get going.
Yes, Mr. Christensen.
I was going to speak to what Trustee Jesperson was asking about tiers. Within our own Smart Start plan that has been approved by the state, we would shut down all activities in Tier 2B. So that seems to be a bit tighter than the WHSAA policy. But I believe that those tiers are going to be at our election, and 2B is where we probably should all.
And just to clarify, what we are being asked to approve is requiring spectators to wear face coverings at all times within the school facility. That's what we're being asked to approve. This isn't requesting a variance or anything of that nature. The item that we are looking at is just requiring face coverings. Yes, sir.
I think that would be my concern, is I think the motion would, well, two concerns. I think the motion needs to be amended if we do need to apply for a variance to do so. Even if, so if we have face coverings on to exceed that limit, because it doesn't say that, it just says we're gonna ask them to do it or require it. And then secondarily, as you're allotting, if it comes to allotment, how do you further reduce the amount of spectators or allow for their peers, student athlete or band member or theater or whatever the activity is, their peers be able to come and watch that as well. So if there's allotments for visiting teams, there are also allotments for student spectators.
That would be something absolutely we want to investigate and see what we could do based on the number. Right now, based on the number for indoor activities and based on the number set for football on outdoor because of the number of participants, we'd be looking at having each individual athlete allocating their either one or two as opposed to being able to allocate for fellow students. Now, if they would use that, they are certainly welcome to utilize their allocation for a fellow student. But for instance, in most cases, like as I envision it, with the allocation, I get two names to put on my list, almost like a college pass system in which you have to decide who you're going to put on your pass list in order to gain access. And if they are not on that list, then they would not be able to be admitted to the facility. But I think you're absolutely right. Right. In order for having the face coverings for indoor events and to get up to 250, we would not have to apply for a variance or exception for that. Or to increase beyond 250 at football, we would have to apply for an exception or variance to increase that, whether or not face coverings would increase the likelihood of that being granted.
Do you have the impression that if we were to require spectators to wear face coverings at all times, that the Department of Health might be more kindly disposed to our variance request?
For indoor activities, again, we would be allowed to jump up to that 250 even without a variance or an exception grant. But I do believe for football, based on what we've talked about in 6 feet and what they're envisioning a stadium to look like, there's really two options here. There's the option to apply for a variance because of our variance or exception because of our, and in this case, we'd be applying for an exception because each individual school being so different with the size of stadium they have, we would not apply for a countywide variance. But in the situation for an exception, we could apply for two. We could apply because of our current rate of infection in the county. We believe that we should have the ability to have 300 spectators and social distancing at outdoor events. Also, we could apply for another variance that would say we plan to have face coverings required at our outdoor events, and we want to increase that to 750 because we're no longer having to social distance. So we can apply for those exceptions on either one. And I don't have an inkling. I have not had an opportunity to have a conversation specifically with county health around what that number might look like. I can only speculate based on my applications for summer activities. Anytime I was able to utilize the language in state health orders that are present in other areas, for instance, face coverings or social distancing, the likelihood of that being approved was significantly greater. Because as soon as I used any even other examples around the state of individuals doing certain activities, it was rejected because those activities weren't approved either. And so that was something that was a challenging in what I've seen in my experience of applying for exceptions and variances.
So would you agree that the first step in this process is to approve the item E that we have in front of us?
I would believe that would be the easiest one to attain and change for immediacy relating to our indoor activities. I think the next step would be the question as to what you would like to see for our outdoor activities. And that would require, if 250 is where we feel social distancing is appropriate, and we feel that number is that, there would be no motion needed. But if we feel, you know what, we want to apply for this and we want to apply for this, we can submit any of those exemptions, excuse me.
Do you need a board-approved motion to apply for an exemption?
I would like specific guidance. I don't necessarily believe, and I have not been in the past for summer activities, but I would like at least consensus based on that would be something that the trustees would support, because I think it is a significant topic of community for our community. And I think that as you have that in relation to your constituents, it would be important for them to know what your thoughts are on that subject.
Okay, so real quick.
Certainly.
Remember, this isn't just football, we host tennis. This would allow, we have good attendance at our tennis matches. I don't think we approach 250 very often, but this would just let anybody come. And we also host golf, and there's usually not 250 people there. All, these are all outdoor, not just football. Tennis, otherwise, I'm happy to the shop out this weekend and measure everything out. It's like graduation. So the way we're going to do this is become part of it. It's another consideration as part of what you're considering.
And cross-country doesn't really attract that many spectators.
We're not currently publishing a cross-country game at this time.
Okay.
I can't hear everything that's being said, but has anybody said anything about student attendance? Because when we're talking 48 students, that would also, I mean, our students are spectators. So if we're limiting the number of spectators, we're either further limiting parents and grandparents, or we're telling our very own students, you can't come to support your school and your classmates. So keep that in mind as well, please. Thank you.
I sense that the desire of the board is to allow as many spectators as we can possibly grant permission to host. Am I incorrect in that?
I think was there a motion?
Yeah.
For the first, so
Yeah,
I think
there's
maybe that can be acted upon.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I'm
You're
just
doing just
continuing.
fine.
I'm just continuing the discussion. So with that in mind, can we move, are you ready to move for a vote on this item?
Madam Chairman, I was wanting to make a comment, Trustee Wagner.
Please.
I remember, and this is not a good way to start a conversation, back in the old days when I played football, I'd have done anything to play. I'd have worn a mask, I'd have done anything. And I'm surprised Mr. Glendale probably would bring that same perspective about the players and the other coaches, Mr. Bollingford and so forth. That these kids want to participate, and their moms and dads want to see them. And even though I don't like masks and I don't like this ridiculous social distancing thing, I want to see our kids have a chance to succeed. And so I will vote for this because of that. I just wanted to. And the other question I have is, what is a face covering? I can imagine some of my cowboy friends come with this neckerchief around their throat, and when they get there, they put it on like the old Al Bandito, you know, like, is that a face covering?
So far.
That is a face covering.
Okay, just
so far it is.
No, that's a great question.
If I ever have to come with a face covering, it's going to be just a little Bandito in my house. Thank you.
This is Trustee Jesperson, I would agree with Trustee Wagner. Even from the standpoint of the identity of our communities is, word is escaping me now, I'm sorry. It's in our sports teams. It's in our schools, it's in our sports teams. So I think, and I don't think anybody's gonna disagree that we ought to do whatever we can to maximize the number of people that can participate in that environment for our kids. Even if it's a hostile crowd coming home from Douglas or Guernsey, wherever. And also as a parent who tends to get a little vocal at games, I'm sure my kid will appreciate the fact that I have to wear a mask and I might muffle me a little bit.
Or no one will know who you
And
are.
having been a basketball official, I might appreciate that.
Madam Chairman, call for the question, please.
The question has been called. At this time, I'd like to ask those trustees who wish to approve requiring activity spectators to wear face coverings at all times within our school facilities to indicate that approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Any abstention? I'm trying to say dissension all night tonight. Any abstentions? And that has passed unanimously. Now, along these lines, would you like to convey to Superintendent Kramer your wish that he proceed to pursue any exceptions or exemptions that would facilitate our an increase in the number of spectators that we're allowed? Is that something that we can reach consensus on? And
Yes.
even though we're not taking a vote on it, we're not going to vote on it because it's not on the agenda. Yeah, Trustee Wagner, but if we can just give him the sense that we would support him applying for any exemptions or exceptions that allow us to increase the number of spectators at our sporting events. He's certainly got our support in pursuing those actions.
In all of this, Mr. Kramer has done nothing but take into the safety, the account of safety for the kids and staff and parents. And I have no doubt that we continue to do that. Yes.
Agreed.
So I want to make sure I'm clear on what it is we're supporting. Because
Sure.
when we get questions later, I want to be able to explain it better than I explain other things that happen. So what we're asking then is for indoor events, we're going to be, you're going to be applying for an exception where we can have, go ahead.
No, indoor events are 250. Right now, with what the motion was made, that allows us to jump up to 250 right away for indoor events without even an exception being granted to any of our schools. In the event for outdoor, we need to apply to either increase our attendees by social distancing or increase even more dramatically because we are agreeing that if we can wear a face covering and we can get that number up to 700 at a THS event and up to a much higher number at Southeast. I would want to consult with county health and what they're comfortable with that number being, but that's where I would be applying for, is whatever we feel we can safely allocate wearing face coverings. That's what we want to be at.
Okay.
We all clear?
Can we also look at past history of about attendees to these games? I don't want to push for a minimum. If we're going to do this thing, I want to push for a maximum. So that
I'm in complete agreement on the maximum, absolutely. Especially, and I think that face covering piece allows us to strongly advocate for that.
So here's another question I have. I probably should have brought it up long before the question on the last piece. So if we get to an event, and heaven forbid, I mean, we want our gyms full of people or filled with people. But if it's not exciting or something else happens and that we get to where there's less than 100 people in Wheelie Gymnasium, we take our masks off.
And that is an interesting question that I have not kind of had a chance to contemplate. But if we can social distance, that is currently what the variance or exception is. And so if we could do that, it would be my understanding that yes, if we're not having the attendance that would exceed that 100 people and we can know that that's our set amount we can social distance at, I would agree that then, that event, and we want to make sure and try to, what we're going to be able to do, we're going to get real good at issuing what percentage we want for certain groups, students, of community members, parents, and those type of things. It's going to be a conversation that, as activities directors, this was actually the first step. Tomorrow, we have a meeting already scheduled. Based on the discussion here, here's what we're implementing going forward, because we also agree we want to provide as much opportunity for our community, our students, and our parents and relatives to attend these activities.
Thank you. I just know I'm going to get asked that question.
Absolutely. It's a great question.
Or we will.
All right, and we are moving on to item E, which in our addendum is board member topics for discussion. And
2 more on our agenda. We have Evan and Jude.
oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. Thank you, Trustee Miller, for keeping me on track. Item F, we are considering the approval of offering a teaching contract for the upcoming school year. Is there a motion?
Jesperson, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second, Miller.
Any discussion about this hiring? Hearing none, I'd ask all trustees who approve of offering a teaching contract to Alyssa Wilmoth for the upcoming school year at Lincoln Elementary for special ed teaching position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Any abstention? That was passed unanimously. Item G, we are considering the approval of elementary school-wide Title I program plans. And the recommendation is that this is approved. Is there a motion?
Jesperson, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Miller, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd ask the trustees who wish to approve the school-wide Title I program plans as required by WDE as submitted by all our elementary schools to indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. And any abstentions? Now we're up to topics for discussion. And I was hoping to welcome our 2 student reps back to the live meetings. Thank you so much for attending. And Sarah, you're socially distanced entirely adequately. So if you'd like to take your mask off, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah, I'll introduce myself.
Sarah, maybe,
Yeah.
I know with people on our YouTube things, it's been a struggle to find, to hear sometimes. So,
Yeah.
and if you want to hit that button on there also. I think.
Okay, how's that? Better?
You can move it the way you want.
Thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to introduce myself for those of you who do not know who I am. I'm Sarah Glad, and I'm the student school board representative from Torrington High School. And I have a few things I wanted to say. So I'm going to start off by reading a couple of statements that I collected from some of my peers and students in the community. One student said, "I know for me personally, I will probably wear a mask at all times, but I definitely think it is a good idea if we are closer than 6 feet apart. I hope that the rules stay enforced consistently." End quote. And another student said, "I'm glad masks are being required in school. I wish our community would take it more seriously. We have an older staff that COVID could very well affect. People are dying because of this. If the school wasn't requiring masks, I know my family and some of my friends would not be coming back. I just want everyone to be safe." End quote. I'm grateful that the school board is looking out for my safety and the safety of my friends and my peers. We as students have the right to feel safe at school, and it's obvious from the comments mentioned before that some students won't if students are allowed to wander the school without masks. And I want to finish my senior year. I want to be able to compete at state tennis and cross country and attend a prom. And I want to run with my relay team at track and have a graduation ceremony. I imagine many students feel the same, and wearing masks makes it more likely that we can attend school for longer and participate in more events. So while those are important, we shouldn't forget we are also protecting vulnerable teachers and staff who are the force behind our education and the activities we enjoy and need. I applaud the board protecting the safety of our community, our teachers, our students, and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sarah, I appreciate your remarks. And Clara? This is Clara Peterson. She is our student representative from Southeast High School.
And yeah, most of you who don't know me, I'm Clara Peterson. I go to Southeast High School. And I think earlier in the meeting, a lot of concerns were addressed just about the parents' issues. And I know a lot of kids have talked to me personally about homeschooling this year, just because I was homeschooled in the past. And yeah, it sucks having this, but we got to make the best of it. And I'm really grateful that all you guys are doing what you can do. And just like Sarah said, I want to finish out my senior year and just keep it memorable and just have an enjoyable year. Thank you for doing all that you're doing.
Thank you, my dear. And Miss Lorena, is Kelly with us?
She sent some information to Ryan Clayton that it's fine to share. She's at work.
Oh, okay. I didn't see her on the Zoom, but I could have missed something.
So Chairman Patrick reached out to me and asked if I would make contact with the student representative in regards to tonight's meeting. Callie Isler is our Engleboro High School representative. She says, "Good morning. As much as I would love to be at the meeting tonight, I'm scheduled to work, so I will not be able to attend. Since you have asked for our thoughts, all I would have to say is I'm optimistic for a safe school year and hope everyone respects the plan. Wise and good man, no hard is. Also, even though most of my classes are college classes, this year, I look forward to seeing everyone and students back in school. Thank you."
Thank you, Mr. Clayton, for facilitating those interactions. I appreciate that. Any other comments, topics? Mr. Trustee Miller, you had mentioned.
Yeah, I regret that I did not ask to move this portion of the agenda before we let our community members go. I want to thank those community members that came tonight to provide input. Oftentimes it's said that we don't listen to parent input, whereas these last two meetings are the most well-attended parent board meetings that we've ever had. So it's often not given as well. And so for you to come, take the time to come here and give us your input is extremely beneficial and appreciated. I hear you. I think that there were some excellent questions tonight posed. And I think that it's incumbent upon us as a district and a district administration to further tighten up our communication where we can. I know I personally, as a parent, have also had some of the same concerns and have reached out to our superintendent and others about communication on what do these plans mean? What do the different levels mean? As it relates to the meeting last week, I feel I've had a lot of time to think because actually I was sick at home for the last 6 days following that meeting. But some things, I was approached by a community member following that meeting, and it was pretty disrespectful in tone. And I appreciate the respectful tone here tonight. I think as Wyoming citizens, we often pride ourselves on autonomy, that we are the cowboy state and we're going to be autonomous. Autonomy as an ethical principle means that we're going to act with objective morality without regard to ourselves. And then two ethical principles that I hope always guide us as a board is non-maleficence, the duty to do no harm, and beneficence, the duty to do the most good. And that is where my decision making is having to come from at this point. Not a personal opinion. I have to rely on what science is saying. I have to do those things. However, it's those ethical principles that are guiding my decision making as we approach these very difficult decisions. So thank you.
And if I could just piggyback on your remarks a little bit, Trustee Miller, I wanted to note that our vulnerable adults who work in our buildings are not limited to vulnerabilities that are imposed by age. We have instructors, as Trustee Jesperson noted last time, who have asthma. We have instructors who are diabetic. We have at least one instructor who is currently being treated for cancer. We have a number of adults who work with our students who have conditions that, who have comorbidities, who are under 60 years old. And just simply because those conditions have not been disclosed does not mean that they don't exist. And so we are doing our best to try to protect those adults who give everything they've got to our students. Yes.
Trustee Wagner. I just want to thank the parents that showed up tonight. I know most of them are gone. They've gone to a lot of time and a lot of expense of their own to put forth their agenda. And I also want to bring to mind this document from Senator Steinmetz that has several questions. She's leveled these questions to our school board twice now, and I think they deserve an answer. That we need to give her an answer on these questions.
This is Christine Miller speaking. I had just a couple of questions about some things. Firstly, a request for Lorene. I really miss our page numbers of where the documentation is, and I know you have a new program, so you're probably working on that.
They noticed it too.
Yeah. And then I was wondering where we are on the plexiglass schedule, and that one of the parents or one of the public speakers did bring that up tonight. I was wondering how far behind we are on that. I was wondering what we're looking at as far as student numbers that we may be losing. And then had some comments after we get a couple of answers.
So in regards to the plexiglass that has been ordered, that we've not been provided, this is Superintendent Kramer, we've not been provided with a ship date as of yet. We'll be checking on that. We are working on as many possibilities that we can on some alternative options to the plexiglass in individual classrooms. One thing that I did ask the administrators today to quantify for us is that actually we have approximately 40% of our classrooms district-wide that we are able to social distance. And so even without plexiglass, we will have the ability in 40% of those classrooms to not have to wear face coverings while instruction is occurring. And so that's a higher number than I had first anticipated. That is partially due to some of our areas in which we've been able to have those class sizes that are smaller in a larger area. In relation to the number that have chosen to homeschool or chosen to utilize the other options for either remote learning, I don't have a hard number as of today because we're still in the process of contacting the students. We do have roughly, in our rough estimate, about 10% of our student population currently, but I'll have more exact numbers and would be able to share those hopefully by, I plan to share that also on our radio address, the school talk on Thursday, and be able to talk about that.
I guess my other comment for our discussion time is that I think we do need to answer Senator Steinman's questions the best we can. I think we need to answer, there were several people that asked us questions this evening. And I guess I would really like to see Well, if you have those answers, that those answers be provided on social media, on the radio show, on the website, as much information as possible. And if we don't have those answers, then hopefully you can relay to the board what we need to do to figure out what some of those answers might be. And I understand that some of those questions maybe we can't have an answer to because we can't see the future and we just don't know. But a lot of those things, I would love to see a communication plan so that people are more comfortable. And I'd like to see it happen sooner than later.
And some of those have been discussed also, and actually I was going to utilize my superintendent's report, but we're also planning to do a Q&A on Facebook Live later this week with the parent group and have that on their Facebook page also, and so we can answer a number of those questions. Also, we do save every radio or school talk on our website. And every week since March 15th, I've been trying to convey as much information during that. But usually I get about 10 to 15 minutes of time a week. And that's an excellent opportunity to get those updates. And in June and July, they weren't very specific because quite honestly, we didn't have a lot of specifics to be able to provide. We did not receive the guidance from the state in regards to what even our rough outline should look like for returning this fall until July 2nd. And it was challenging and it's continuing to be challenging, but absolutely as we reflect and look at ways that we can continue to increase communication and things. When I've had an opportunity to visit with individual families and those type of things, those conversations have gone extremely well. Again, I've encouraged that throughout this process because each family in this situation is unique. There's a lot of times where a lot of our same questions are similar, but there's a lot of situations that are unique to this family, unique to each family. And even after last Tuesday, I had an opportunity after the meeting to speak to some parents, and there were specific individual questions that they need some guidance, they need some help, and that's what we're here for. Please do not ever hesitate to recommend for individuals to contact us with questions, because there's a lot of personal questions that really need to be asked. And also too, we do monitor our YouTube feed in relation to any of those questions to try to answer those appropriately also.
Trustee McClung. I guess I just have a question is what it would look like, or would we be able to start school after Labor Day? It gives the school more time, gives this current outbreak more time to play out and see what's happening in our community. I think it'd be smart if we could look into at least starting after Labor Day.
We did investigate that option, and we can certainly do that. Unfortunately, that would not provide us with any additional days with our teachers in between that time. They are not reducing the 175 contact days. For instance, what we requested was if we had an ability to say, let's meet with our teachers, prepare even more, get everything in place, and let's go from there. And that was not an option because that application would have had to been completed in March of last year. And they currently have not been granting any exceptions, as other districts have been asking that same question. I do not disagree, Mr. McClung, or Trustee McClung, excuse me, that the more time would provide us with an opportunity. I don't know that we'd see dramatic differences, but that would extend our calendar significantly into the month of June for the school year ending in 2021 as an option. So that would be something certainly I would always entertain further discussion, but there are ramifications that may be involved in that situation. And as I know too, parents and planning how they're finishing out the school year is challenging also, or getting ready for the school year, excuse me.
Can that be something that comes up? Sorry, this is Trustee Jesperson. Can that be something that comes up maybe in the, you said you're gonna do the Q&A this week?
Yep, that's correct, at the end of the week.
Can you get a feel for how parents would react to that?
I could certainly see what the thoughts would be. I would encourage conversations with your constituents, since I know many talk with you too. I'm open to options. I'm open to whatever the best options are, and what we feel comfortable with, in relation to that. But certainly, I would love to have heard early last week when we presented that option to the Department of Education saying, yes, we'd be happy with a certain application to reduce those days. And so you could add those to professional development days, because that would be extremely valuable in preparing for all our tiers if we could have more time with teachers. Unfortunately, that was a very significant no to that option.
I have a question. If we were to move the school days back to midday, would that affect extracurriculars at all, or would it just resume as planned?
Yes, it would not affect extracurriculars, as I'm aware. They would still be ongoing, just like currently with some of our activities, as tennis and golf have already started. It's not necessitated by a school start date.
I have one thing too also. First, I'll apologize if someone has reached out to me via email through the school system and I have not received it, because sometimes my name gets misspelled. And there was one that came through from Chairman Patrick. My name was misspelled, so that's why I didn't get it. So keep that in mind if you're trying to email me through the school system. It's all ease. And then there has been some interest, and I know through the concerned parent group and others about interest in running for the election. So the WSBA issued a guide for school board candidates. I'd be happy to share that with anybody who's interested, or if you know people who are interested, have them get in touch with me. They can call me at the bank. I work at First State Bank, and I can be happy to get that information to them. And I wish they would have had this when I applied, because there's some good stuff in it. Thank you.
All right, our future meetings. The next regular board meeting will be Tuesday, September 8th at 7 p.m. And the annual back to school staff in service begins on Tuesday, August 11th, 2020. And due to all of our restrictions, everything must be done via Zoom, and we will not be able to see all our staff at the district barbecue this year, which that's a tough one. I know that we all enjoy seeing those folks come through and start their new year, and we'll all miss it. So Superintendent Kramer, I'll turn to you and ask you to provide your report.
I did touch upon number one in regards to student enrollment numbers. We'll have some more specific data later in the week as we kind of get close to those who are still trying to consider their options. The update on our current district status, I'm going to just touch upon. We did have our first day of whole staff in service and our welcome back, and we did that via Zoom. Mr. Heyman, earlier in his letter that he shared with staff, opened up with probably the most pertinent paragraph I have read, and it was the opening paragraph to A Tale of Two Cities. I read that this morning to the staff to start off the school year, because if you remember, even just the first sentence, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness, it was the epic of belief, it was the epic of incredulity. There are so many things within that first paragraph that I still unbelievably can't imagine how that correlates to what we're dealing with now, and how we can align that. And I think in doing that and sharing that this morning, we start to take a step back. And what I've struggled with over the last, for sure, 4 weeks has been what is usually typical for me, an extreme excitement for school starting. And that's what I really missed. And I woke up this morning and actually even developing my program for this morning for the teachers was, it's going to be positive. Not everything's going to go perfect. Not everything's going to go really well. And there's going to be some things that probably are not going to work as we planned. But I shared 2 different pictures this morning, screenshots from 2 movies that I'm pretty familiar with. And one was from Groundhog Day. And since March 15th, it's kind of seemed like Groundhog Day. Same day, day after day after day, getting some new information, but also answering a lot of questions of, I don't know. And then I also shared a screenshot from Elf, the movie Elf, and the portion of where Will Ferrell gets told that Santa is coming. And that screenshot of him with this extreme excitement, and I shared that with staff this morning. I said, whether we're having to wear face coverings, whether we're having to social distance, every single one of our kindergartners is coming on Tuesday with that excitement. This is their Christmas. First day of school, kids are, some of our kids are, as Trustee Clayton and I spoke yesterday, some of these kids are looking at face coverings as it's like Halloween every single day. And it's unique and interesting in how we're going to attack this and how we're going to be able to still educate our students, provide them with the best opportunities that we can, and really love them. And that's one thing that it's harder to do when we're remote learning. It's easier to do face-to-face, and it's still going to present some problems also as we do this throughout the year. But that's paramount for us, is we are starting in Tier 1, what we call Tier 1B, and that's open. And we're able to have all of our students on campus. We're not having to start alphabet A through M. We're not having to have 50% of them. We're getting to have every one of them that wants to attend on Tuesday to be there. Now, obviously, we'll still have some conversations, but in relation to that, that's significant for us. And there's a significant role, as many of the individuals who spoke this evening and spoke extremely well talked about the social emotional health of our kids. And there's ways that we can address all of those things in whatever tier we're in. And I've heard, and I've brought this up in my reports, and I've heard continuously, spring wasn't what we wanted it to be. And I think if you asked everybody, everyone, 100%, every one of our teachers was, it really wasn't exactly what we wanted it to be. But we did what we could for kids. And one of the things that I know educators do really well is they walk away from an experience and they always do better. And that's what I envision for every one of our tiers. If we are able to stay Tier 1B or even move to Tier 1A where it's completely normal, we're going to be able to improve that instruction. If we're moving to Tier 2A or Tier 2B or even Tier 2C, and we're in a hybrid situation where in Tier 2A, we're only able to have 50% of our students on campus, but they're still able to mix in pods. They're still able to go and have extracurricular activities because we're not worried about in Tier 2A, the students coming in contact with each other. And that's where that difference comes in what Wyoming High School Athletic Association has really guided them. And it's kind of interesting because it works against what tier we're in, but their guidance has been very specific in pod practices. I don't necessarily, right now with what tier we're in, that really doesn't benefit them in that system. But if we step into a Tier 2B, there's still a possibility if we're in a pod system to be able to continue our extracurricular activities and things. Tier 3 will look dramatically different, and it cannot be in comparison to what we did this spring. It will not look the same. I can 100% guarantee what we've learned from the spring will not be replicated this fall. We've already, even through our guidance, if you had an opportunity to read our Smart Start document, illustrates some of the specifics around Tier 3 and illustrates what we plan to do and how we plan to check in with students, and specifies teachers working in that process, setting up requirements for each other, not just administration working in that tier and saying, we expect you to do this, or we have these expectations. It was teachers working with administration to develop a Tier 3 in which they're holding themselves accountable for contacts and able to really illustrate what things they can do for kids. Now, it won't, obviously, in any tier be perfect. We're striving for perfection, but we know we're not there yet. And that's as I read many of these comments too, and hear many of the comments, I think we are endangering ourselves with comparing our experiences that we've had and not expecting more. I think we all have the expectation of more, but I think there's some doubt that we can get there. And I firmly believe, based on the work I've seen from teachers, we can get there. We can do much better in every single tier and every single responsibility that we have. And I'm excited for the opportunity for our students. I'm excited for this to be, a year for our seniors, that we can actually remain in school. And again, I'm going to reiterate, because I know it's been a rumor that I've continually heard repeated, and I've tried almost weekly on the radio and through those situations to try to downplay. It is not just one virus confirmation that takes us to tears. It is conjunction of us working with county health and state health on a number that we have not been provided yet, because we still are waiting guidance from county health. And that's what a lot of this is. A lot of times it takes other organizations to guide us through this practice. And that takes time, and that's frustrating for me, and that's frustrating for our parents, and I know it's frustrating for you as trustees. But one thing I appreciated greatly from our staff has been the patience that we've been granted to find out the answers, that we may not know immediately what that answer is, but we're going to work on finding it. And sometimes, quite honestly, when I ask those questions, I have to have that same grace, because not only us, but other organizations that we work with haven't been given that information either at the state level. And that's challenging for them too. So as we kind of move into the Smart Start plan, we've modified some things, came with some more specifics. I was able to talk with, or actually gain information from neighboring school districts in regards to what are your plans. One is a little bit unique from us and a little bit different, but of the 3 that I've received, and I'm still waiting for the 4th, 2 out of those 3 are the exact same expectations. That on day 1 of school, we're entering tier 1. When social distancing can't be maintained, face coverings are required. When it can be maintained, as in 40% of our classrooms, we will be able to remove face coverings. Again, 40% of our classrooms are able to remove face coverings, which is a significantly higher percentage that I had anticipated and explained earlier on. And it's due to many different factors that we're able to do that. And so I think there's opportunities. We've been really very cognizant, just like we do with kindergartners on day 1 in a regular situation, providing as many breaks. K through 12, we're going to need to provide more breaks. We know that. We're going to have to plan as educators to provide more opportunities to have the conducive learning that we're used to, and making sure we can care for our students in that way. And again, I want to reiterate too, we'll be doing a Q&A later this week with a specific time, and we'll share that on social media. And again, you can access all our previous school talks on our website. And again, there have been occasions in which I have not been able to make it on a Thursday, but since March 15th, there have been only 2 weeks in which I was not able to at least call in and provide updates. And again, we post those on our website, and it's a great opportunity to hear the information on a weekly basis for what we're up against and what we're kind of facing. I also just want to finish up with thanking those who came to comment. I know they committed the time and to sharing their opinions, and I appreciate that. And it's no easy task, as many of us know, that are charged with public speaking, to get in front of a group of people and speak so eloquently as many of them did this evening.
I agree. Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on our amended agenda is an executive session in which we're going to discuss the superintendent's evaluation process. There will be no action taken after the executive session, so please don't stay in anticipation of hearing more. We'll discuss what we need to discuss in executive session and come into public to adjourn virtually. So thank you for your attendance tonight, and could I have a motion to move into executive session, please?